Show your teacher wrong. Do you think your teacher would like if you could show them wrong
Howdy,
on
y'all.
the subject?
Yes. Yeah.
Howdy, y'all. I am Dr. Parks, PhD, and welcome to the live stream. This is impromptu, and it might be a little hectic because, well, it's not what I was expecting this would be tonight. So I have a lot of new people in my Discord, and we're going to apparently be having a discussion in Discord. I have never shared or done a live stream with Discord. So I don't know how this is going to work. So I hope you all will bear with me while I do this.
Friend of mine that I have, I wouldn't imagine somebody meeting with a mission leader for a NASA program that's supposedly going to the moon. That would be like Discord savvy on here, like swapping avatars and having one of them like on a skateboard. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet.
Dude, no, we had a guy from NORAD.
Yeah, sure.
Wait, do you think just because I'm in
Literally
aerospace engineering, I don't do skateboarding? I mean, like, that really
No,
is
no. I'm not trying to like put a certain jacket on you at all because I know people do things, but it's just I don't know, man. It's like
Yeah. Sorry, I'm
I use Discord.
I am. Let's see here. Let's do this. I apologize. I'm kind of. I need coffee. It's bubbling. It's brewing. Lots of things are going on. Too much. So, if there are people watching right now, I'm assuming you cannot hear my Discord. If you all will be with me or bear with me one more second, I got to go get my coffee. I'll be right back. Coming. All right.
Oh, no. I'm not working for NASA.
Let's do this.
I never said I was working for NASA.
I didn't say anything about NASA. NASA doesn't even do anything. They're a merchandise company. JPL does most of the work.
We brought the boys.
So
Man.
you
We
see how I
brought the
start bringing
boys.
up that they know about JPL. Take notes.
This is a debate between Professor Parks and our boy Dan the Water.
Yeah, Dan is here. So I am live on YouTube, and I am just seeing whether or not they can hear me out there in the YouTube land. Okay.
By the way, I don't think this is a debate, right? It's just talk.
No, it's. I don't do debates. It's simply a conversation.
Get that link in the chat so we can watch it on YouTube.
Appreciate you guys. Go ahead and continue. My bad.
Yeah, no
I just
problem.
want to see if we get a link so I can post it on places so we can.
Riggs and Howell's gonna come.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me get that for you. That's probably going to hear me in a moment.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to hear your voice. I
Yeah.
appreciate you as well. I brought also with me today one of the primary people that's worked on the salt and sea stuff with us. He's
Okay.
Together every bit of manpower he ever had was due to his diligence. Linda Walton is with us today. Has questions regarding that. Flatlander, nice to see you, Wendell. Thanks for coming.
So real quick, whose cat is that? Just out of curiosity.
Riggs and the Howell's gonna come swoop it up in about 5 minutes.
Oh, lovely.
Riggs, get in line, Riggs. Here we
All
go.
right. So
Be
there's
careful,
that.
fall off the edge of the earth.
Okay. I'm hearing that Dan's audio is a bit low, probably because of.
ask you to control these guys, or I'm gonna shit can all over them, okay?
All right.
Dan, are you wearing your white jacket?
No, I have it. You want to put it on?
You know, astronomers and physicists don't actually wear lab coats,
I
right?
think you need to get in the mode, bro. Put that thing on.
All right, I'll do that.
Feel that energy, bro.
Oh, there is a Dan.
There we go. The waterman's getting it
Dan the
in.
man. All right. Let's see here.
From the position, soldier.
All right. I will.
With the glasses.
It's not
there they
fair,
are.
Rob. Not fair. It's trickery. I know it is. I won't get the clipboard out.
All right. Okay.
There they are. Yes, sir.
So as comedic it is to do this,
Yeah.
it is a lot about the stuff that Bob and I like to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
People's perceptions, what it means, how we get stuck in our own perceptions, and what it takes to break through. For instance, the black robe of justice, the priest, or possibly the priest of scientism wearing this, and is it as symbolic as priesthood? And it's reactive and such. If I go out like this, people want to know what I know. It's fucking real.
Okay. Sure.
Your audio for this is not going to go out to StreamYard, by the way. If you think they can't hear Dan on your stream,
Yeah.
they're only hearing Dan through Discord.
Yeah. All right.
StreamYard.
So
FYI.
yeah, I thought as much. Do you know how I might be able to rectify that?
OBS. Yeah, you have to do it through OBS.
Oh crud.
You have him join, or send him a link and have him join. Send him a DM to join the StreamYard, and then he won't be in here in Discord. He's going to be in your StreamYard, and we'll watch from there.
Okay.
But your streamers cannot hear him.
All right. Do that low. All right. I can do that, Dan. Would that be all right?
Oh, whatever you guys think.
All right.
Yeah, the best.
Here. How about this? Let's see here.
That was a rough finding for me as well. Nobody click that link but Dan, please. Don't troll.
Yes, please.
Dan, it's in with you.
I will. I'm gonna put this out here. I had originally thought that this was going to be a conversation solely between Dan and PhD Tony. I did not realize that there was going to be a whole lot of people. I am coming off a 14-hour workday, and apparently my cat is also cracking out. So yeah, this could be interesting. I'm very.
As long as they both join StreamYard, it's good. But they both need that link and no one else should join it. You should be able to add them to the stream.
Mm-hmm.
If a bunch of people join, you might have to kick them. But otherwise, just add them to the stream and then you can play them with the StreamYard there.
All right.
We're only here because we're very much interested in.
I'm honestly very flattered that you guys are here. So hold on,
Carry some cred. See how you carry credit.
apparently.
Get these people to fucking wipe the butt.
Apparently. Hold on a second. Let me.
No, you guys want to post this everywhere in MMM.
All right.
Hey, just
Well.
Just real quick. MMN fucking stuff. Hey, just real quick. Present parts meeting.
Hold on a second. I just want someone's asking for the Discord on YouTube.
I was just gonna tell you they're asking for the link in Discord.
Yeah.
Or of Discord.
Yeah, I just put it in there. So yeah. Yeah, like I said, 14-hour workday. So my ability to be tactful might be a little bit off, but no Discord pissing contest. MMM is great. Let's see. Adding Dan to the stage. All right. So Dan, can you
is everyone picking up an echo? Am I the only one with an echo?
I'm hearing an echo off of you, so I'm gonna
You need to get out of
Yeah.
Discord, Dan.
I did.
Dan's on there second on
Hold
that.
on. It's a technical aspect. Hey, Professor Park, you're using
Yes.
speakers, right?
Well, when you use-
Well,
Just-
But he'll be able to add his
Okay, I
video
deafen-
to
I
the
deafen
screen, but he's not
Discord.
gonna
I
be
think
able to
that
do it
helps.
inside of Discord. You're doing. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He'll be able to have the video because they can't see him on his stream.
So right now on the stream,
You're, if you're streaming a video, you're just lowering.
Yeah,
How to
so-
get a room with just Dan, and then how to stream it, and we'll all listen to the stream, and nobody will be able to.
Well, Dan, can you leave-
Set up to where you have like a stage set up to where people have to raise their hand in order to interact, and then only the moderator.
I don't
can
think
get-
Professor Parsons has like he's not I don't know if he's from there. Or
not to that level, no. Not to that level, no. So,
Look, I'm ready for
Okay,
the show.
can anyone hear me?
How around it?
Can anyone hear
So-
me?
I can hear you, Dan.
No one can hear me. Okay, because I can't hear the room. I only hear it through your speakers.
I hear Dan.
So I don't know if I should remain here, or if I should go back to Discord. Let me know what you think. But at some
well,
point,
you're currently on both, Dan.
okay, I can't hear the panel though whatsoever. I can't. Hang on. Let me turn it back on over here.
Okay, well then that is
Dan, you're supposed to.
Dan, you're supposed to use Discord all together. You're not supposed to hear the panel.
You're not supposed to hear the panel.
You're not supposed
supposed to be muted.
Yeah, just mute Discord.
Okay,
okay. Dan is out of
I've still got-
Discord.
I still got a huge imbalance between Rob speaking and everyone else. They're
Yeah, I think
far away compared to-
that I will apologize for. Again, it was only until the last minute that I knew that this was happening. I am not a
Okay.
savant. when it
Ask them
comes to
if it's
Discord
the
or
same,
OBS.
and maybe you can turn down. Ask them if it's that for them, and if you need to turn down or something. But I can't hear them at all.
I
And
don't
I
think
hear
they're
an
talking
echo
right
on
now. They're
me.
not talking.
Okay, do you know where the echo on me is coming from? Is that just your speakers? Okay,
Might
it's
be.
not bad.
Yeah, it might be.
Okay. Okay, so we can all relax a little bit. I can't do it this way. I'm bouncing back. I can't hear anyone. This won't
It sounds
work.
like
Yeah. This,
all right. So do
I
you-
hear
you
myself
wanna
bouncing back somewhere.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. I'm causing it. Okay. I'm hearing myself on YouTube. Sorry.
All right. Okay.
Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. What I really want to do is I would like to start a series, if I can, of more professional talks. And it's something I tried to invite Professor Tony, who backed out at the last minute. He wants to do it next week. So the format that I wanted to do going into what could be a series, exiting the physical properties of flat Earth and even into the psychology, the psychopathy, conspiracies versus conspiracy theory, and the conspiratards, creation and biblical cosmology, and religiotards. So there's entire subjects that we could really tackle here. But
All right.
there's one thing I wanted to go over today in particular, because Rob had done a great video the other day, and it was called, what was it called, Rob? It was called Why
I had
does
to
it
change the title
Why
because
does it
of Stephanie. Why something like why your belief of the shape of the Earth matters, something of that nature.
And that was an exciting title, and it started out pretty terrific. And before I know it, I was being quoted, and I was like, fuck yeah, this is cool. And the way Rob has tackled flat Earth to begin with was difficult. He got kicked around a lot. by the Oakley crowd and the first places he went 24/7, where, as we know, there isn't a brain there. It's certainly nothing to talk to. And real science, we love to talk to, but when they give us a chance, when they get a chance, we sort of hammer them. And I was really careful not to ever do that with Rob, because it was too easy to say that.
And honestly, the only kind of I guess bad reaction or that I've had is from QE, and I just don't listen to QE, so I'm okay. Actually, when he did that 5-part series on my conversation with Sleeping Warrior, that came out of nowhere. Like
all
just kind of like
all 17, was that all 27 hours? How many hours did he spend on that? 2 weeks?
He spent about 25 hours, from my understanding,
30 hours
on a
something like
5-hour
that?
conversation, something like that. It was
incredible. It
I
was
didn't
impossible to believe. That guy likes to talk. Okay, so everyone, if they don't know Rob Parks is an astronomer. He works at George Mason University. He's a professor. He teaches. He's also written what we will call a white paper, something we're asked to deal with all the time. How come you haven't made a white paper? Rob, can you tell us what your paper was on?
Are you talking about my thesis? My dissertation?
Yeah. I mean, the stuff that you publish. I mean, you're like a published guy.
So
you're a real guy.
You're
not just a guy. You're not just a guy.
I've got a couple of first author papers and then a few dozen where I'm one of the other authors. So, but I can tell you what my dissertation was on. My dissertation, simply put, the title was Stellar Variability, a Broad and Narrow Perspective. Because of the way that I got a fellowship over at Caltech, and so I did basically almost a completely separate project that was so large that I incorporated into my dissertation. So it's kind of two separate projects tied into one. The main project, the one I first used, I was using interferometry, which is the idea of combining in real time the light from 6 telescopes to simulate a telescope that is much larger. So in this case, the telescope would have been 360 meters in size. That allowed me to actually resolve the surface of a particular star called Lambda Andromeda, and more specifically allowed me to resolve star spots on that surface. I was able to show that those spots rotated. I was able to match up the rotation period from my imaging to the photometric observations that had been done. So that was one half. The other half, which is what I was doing at over at Caltech, was a variability study where I looked at 1,700 young stellar objects, protostars, and I first determined how many of them were variable photometrically, how many of them varied as a function of time. And then from those, I tried to come up with a morphological way of identifying what the variability mechanisms were. Was the change in brightness due to star spots? Was the change in brightness due to accretion, active accretion, disk warping, material in the disk eclipsing the star, things of that nature? So those are my primary research interests. I have also worked on something called reverberation mapping, which determines the mass of a supermassive black hole. And I've also done some stuff on other interferometry observations. And now I am tangentially a part of a research group that tries to confirm the existence of exoplanets. So there it is.
Okay.
That is my
time.
Whatever.
Did at any time in your career up until this point, your belief have anything to do with it? In other words, this is the catchy part, because you really said over and over again in your video, you don't know why we don't believe you, why we don't believe you, and why we believe, and I'm against. I think I don't like the word. I think it's faith-based. It represents the religious side of us, but doesn't represent much of a conversation in the context that we're talking.
Mhm.
Belief.
Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted because I think there's someone in my Discord who is not behaving himself well. Fresh grown flowers, I think, is picking a fight. I would prefer that they not. So hopefully that doesn't become an issue. In terms of belief, yes, belief is, that has been a word that has been sort of
Yeah,
bandied,
come on.
that has been a word that's been bandied around.
Just kick him out.
I am just all right. Fresh grown flowers. If I see something else, one more thing that I don't agree with, I will kick you. I don't like doing that, but I'm going to err on the side of caution. Anyway, with belief, yes. All right, focusing. We often in everyday language say, I believe this, I believe that, when really what we're saying is I have, faith in the source, or, it's not religiously significant. I believe that I will get a ticket from a cop if I am caught speeding, that sort of thing, that sort of language. Now, in terms of your question, or the question that I've asked, why don't people believe what I have to say, is more towards why, I am an expert in this field. And so why is it that folks are listening to an expert and disbelieving what they have to say? Not, or either believing that I'm lying to them, or believing that I'm indoctrinated in some way, or what have you. So, and I think Dan is frozen. Dan appears to be frozen. Dan appears to be not there. Okay.
Can you hear us? Is you at Discord?
I can hear you. Dan is frozen on my screen, and he isn't saying anything.
I just sent him a text to let him know. So
Okay.
we'll see.
All right.
This is what we call time dilation. It's the proof of the cesium atom.
Sounds about right. Dan got burnt.
Hey, just real quick, can you hear me, Professor Clark?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, Park Fun. I can hear you.
I'm getting a huge delay. I don't know why. Oh, I know why, because it's the YouTube as well. Sometimes what happens is if you're in StreamYard and you drop, you have to come back in. So look for him trying to request back in.
Yes. Yeah.
Like he might be on backstage, and you have to bring him back.
He is currently.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think he's backstage. I don't see him anywhere. Usually, when they pops on the bottom left, and I have to add them to the stream. Okay. I'm not seeing him. I probably should have. Yeah.
All right, cool. I was just figuring that might have been one thing, because that happened to us too.
All right.
Dude, half of these debates are just, problematic technical explosion.
No.
All right. So, Jerry, can I talk slower? Yes. Normally, I do not talk quickly. As I've said before, I'm tired. This is all very unexpected, so I'm kind of scrambling. Once I get comfortable with this whole setup, I'm usually much calmer in my speaking. But So,
Yo, can we get a Discord, or not a Discord, but a YouTube link? Because I think it's a delay. I'm watching the stream, but it's on a Discord.
so you want a YouTube link?
Yeah, I posted it over in the main chat. So
Can we get it in the Discord here? Yeah, I just want to see because the
Yeah, I'll do it
on
right now.
Discord. Sorry, the stuff on Discord is delayed, sort of.
Okay. I sound fine.
Dan, were you from StreamYard or something?
If I could get the StreamYard link on my phone, I could come back into the call. Let's see how.
Okay, yeah. When you get this StreamYard, just leave Discord. Only in StreamYard.
All right, I'm gonna come in on my phone because my computer won't work.
All right.
I'm gonna type the link into a browser and do StreamYard.
Okay. All right. Sky Stories with Rob. I saw before somebody commented that I think astronomers aren't scientists, but physicists are. Them's fighting words. So I don't know who said that, but watch yourself. So yeah, I'm not going to, unless somebody wants me to, I am not going to share the Discord screen. Yes, yes, I do. It demonstrably moves.
You're probably better off because if you're streaming to YouTube, there might get
Oh, I missed that, Demon Stride. If I'm streaming to YouTube,
you might get flagged for something that isn't being moderated.
oh, okay. So
What do you mean? This is
Yeah. well, hopefully I don't get flagged. Dan is still not here, as far as I can see.
Where did Dan go? He was on his phone. He said he was able to do it on his phone.
Yeah, let's see here. I've got message incoming, pending. Ha! Something, well, just added a new friend on Discord. Hey, look at that. Peace and love. Can I go into more detail about interferometry? How do I use it to study distant celestial bodies?
I like science.
Okay. I like science too.
Swift is ugly.
Okay. Yes, you're moving up. So interferometry.
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, interferometry is a something of a complex technique. It's when it comes to astronomical techniques, or
balance things out.
when it comes to astronomical techniques like spectroscopy or photometry, interferometry is perhaps the most complicated of them.
Can we get everybody in the Discord? I know, listen, I'm probably interrupting you, Professor Parks, but there's such a delay. It's radical, and we got people interacting with you that are like 15 seconds behind you. So if you could just.
Okay. How about this? If you would actually like to have, a conversation with me, how about you jump on to, oh, there's Dan. There's Dan. Hello, Dan. Can you?
Mic check, mic check.
Yep, I can hear you.
Terrific. I'm on my phone. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, you guys got anything going you want to finish up, or do you want me to? Just the reason why I called Rob around is because I felt excited for his subject matter and continually excited for his interest. It's not necessarily in his own interest that he cares. He cares because of science in general, believe it or not. And I'm going to, at some point accuse him of being into scientism, that's what he believes a great deal. And what happened is when you said, well, I don't know why you don't believe you. It's because of the way consensus works, the generalities that I would say about it being a closed community. But two examples between you and I stand out really big. And you came around as part of your outreach, and it was exciting. Careful, somebody's in here that doesn't belong, I'm sure.
I had before you popped in, I had offered that if anyone
Okay,
wants
good.
to pop in on
Okay.
the stream, they can.
All right, good.
If
Okay.
you would prefer them not to be here, I can.
No. It's just that in this case, I'm uptight about belief,
Yeah.
And I lost my train of thought. Hang on a second.
Scientism, accuse me of it.
The two examples. You came on to Earth Awakenings, and Geo asked, "Hey, Geo's an intelligent guy, right? He's fun," and he says, "Hey, I'm talking to a fucking, a professional about the sky." He goes, "I'm going to ask him a professional question." Whether he was interested to begin with, whether he quickly Googled it or not, he asked you a basic question, and I thought that was a sharp thing to do as a host. And he said, "Hey, did you realize that they came up with a new calculation for the distance to Polaris?" And to be honest, your reaction was, And that was a fascinating moment for me, a landmark moment for me.
Okay.
Whether you think of it that way or not, that was science going, And it only took you 6 or 7 hours to wake up the next day and decide, I'm going to damn well do a video on this because this is interesting stuff. But Geo did have to literally drag you along and show you that he wasn't full of crap. Now, we've done talks with other people before and had the same reaction because you wouldn't expect to get information out of us. And that's why Professor Tony is going to be fun, because as much as he's a hothead and as much as I'm a hothead, he doesn't have to be that way. And he really likes to look into what's for real. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted him to come sit with us in this. I also wanted to invite Jesse, who I forgot to invite, Jesse Path of Light, because Jesse's very religious, but in his talks with us, you'll never hear that. He doesn't talk about what he believes. He's been trying to counter what he was programmed to believe in terms of the globe, and he does a lot of effort to test it and doesn't make a lot of claims. That's a good guy, and you're a good guy too. I just want you to know that you don't make a ton of claims. You really don't. You make as many questions. You bring as many questions as you do answers, and that makes you a fair and honest guy. And
the thing that I want to point out with Polaris is I have a different recollection of that, but when I do remember that when I was told that Polaris was that they had found a new distance from it, and I actually heard this from Witsit first. Witsit was the first person to tell me about this, and I believe my reaction was not my reaction was I did not know that. I will have to look into it. And what I want to highlight, and not to toot my own horn, is that I did look into it. I did make a video about it. And I said, yes, there is some discrepancy here. And there still is a discrepancy there. And I honestly haven't had the time to really look into it.
The excitement still remains. The astronomer learned from the flat earthers that day. Totally exciting. And totally exciting.
And honestly, I've learned quite a bit from because people in the flat earth have made certain claims about the heliocentric model, which I really don't like using. And I've had to look deeper into it. So this, being in these conversations has helped me because I now know or have a deeper understanding of certain aspects of astronomy that I hadn't looked at for years.
So, unfortunately, the next thing that happened was these saturated images of the moon that kept coming across my way. And I was watching a guy named Seafoam make them to prove to me that it was just an image of the moon with saturation and no added hue. And there was two things in the news that week. One was a 5-inch telescope in the backyard of some kid had developed, and the other was a one of the Hawaiian ones, and they both came out with the same identical, heavily saturated, colorful moon images that week. And when I showed you, your first reaction, whether you recall it correctly or not, was that's fake. And although I'd love to believe you, because it is not there as depicted, it's not fake. So when we're confronted with potential evidence, something to be reviewed, and we're expected to be stupid, you can only imagine how hard it is to get through. You don't remember, but Gio had to drag you through it. He really did. And it made such an impact that you absolutely did, a video the next day. It was, it was cool that you did.
Yeah, because I had to, it was compelling. In terms of I want to add context to that moon image. When I said it was fake, what I meant was, and I do believe I clarified this, is that I'm not saying that the moon itself was fake. What I was saying was the coloration is fake in the sense that that is not what we see with our human eye. I'm not suggesting that those colors are fake in that they do not represent certain mineral deposits.
Well, on the other side, I was being yelled at that it's damn well real. And I will promise you, if we look at the elements on the moon and we look at this, I promise you that the mineral composition of those areas do not match those colors. And you and I can make a side bet on that.
Okay.
Because there's no way.
So I'm assuming that's where Tony is going to come in, because
sure,
I am not a geologist in any way whatsoever.
Here's the fun thing about putting you guys together. Ready? You look up at the world, and he looks down at it.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So, this will eventually lead to Nat Geo, and why we think we don't trust, and why you're not blindly trusted. Tony has a lot to talk about when it comes to why the PhD isn't good enough and why he has to prove himself again. And those are valid points. Are we just conspiratarded? Those are valid points.
Mm-hmm.
But in some cases, we're taking it up the ass, Rob, and
okay.
It doesn't feel good.
I would
right or wrong. I'm going to say this real quick. I got a video today that was sent to me. It had to do with, a mass shooting a while ago. And I thought, wow, me, you, and Tony should watch something together that has nothing to do with us and see how we feel about it, because 9/11, and other stuff we might want to talk about, the moon, and not just the shape of the earth, of course, because there's so much more to talk about. And
there is a lot to talk about, but I'm gonna put a caveat on that. If it has to do with people dying, I will not discuss it.
Not only that, we wouldn't be allowed to. So that's the interesting point. If we wanted to talk about a couple of subjects, there is such a thing as censorship. There is a flat earth censorship that's particularly disgusting. And
are you talking about the deprioritizing of flat earth content on YouTube?
You can phrase it that way, and I can talk about authoritarian news, because that's what they talked about in the same sentence, is they were going to lower the things that had these fringe, and they were going to increase what they called authoritarian news. To be honest, Rob, I'd never heard that term before in this country. I don't know if it existed, but I have the image, the still of her standing on stage with the words authoritative news behind her. Okay. So there is. So I'm going to say it now while I have a chance. The earth may not be flat.
Okay.
The issues that flat earthers care about is way more about history, justice, and mankind. I don't know a real flat earther that has a selfish nature. I think they care about the world.
This include Nathan Oakley and QE?
No, and maybe not myself either. So that's sorry. I am guilty of trying to fix the world and not fixing myself. And that is a character flaw that I have to live with, and I'm yet to be able to fix it. Yet I'm able to carry the angst that I've had by not being heard by, let's say my family or I want to be heard more, so I yell more. And does that give me an energy? Yeah. Is it good? No. Can people read through it? Yeah, it sucks. It's like, look, he's just bitching. Well, you give me a chance to not do that. You give me a chance to talk to someone. We don't have to argue. You and I get along enough. And I want to enhance that into a series that both you and I and Tony can invite more professionals in to discuss things, because I know you want to mix more in those circles where you're bringing in other experts and other things just because you find things interesting. And I'm thinking that if we pick a day of the week and do it every week, it's going to be easier to invite people. And when they say to me now, oh, why the fuck would I come on with flat earthers? I can say something as crazy as we have professors and PhDs and people on all the time. So I'm hoping to get to something like that, where it can be more civil. People can talk about their expertise and their experience.
I will be open with you. I can only speak for my own colleagues, and I will admit that a number of my colleagues do not understand why I engage with folks from the flat Earth, and that's the best side of things. The worst side of things is they basically condemn me for it.
Okay, well, we don't need to go into your field because we have you for your field. This might be a good time to bring up something I wanted to bring up between you both. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give a shout out to Riggs, who wanted to make this point, and I argued that I didn't give a shit what he said, and I apologize. He said in a separation from your own establishment, which can happen, with a fringe scientist and people that you can mention in history that went against everything.
Yeah.
What do you think of peer review now would be the end of his argument. Is peer review, when you're against it, can it be a force in itself? And of course it can, it can. And when you said to me, or said to Gio, which is the way I read it.
Okay.
Whether you agree, you didn't say, you said it's fake to me. And you did say, that's not true, is what you said in Gio's. And
okay.
So that reaction is common. The reaction to something forget the bias, is it coming from a bunch of kooks? That's a whole nother thing. But imagine just somebody saying, you're drinking coffee over coffee, telling you about something you know about. And you're like, sure you do. It just turned out he got lucky. We got lucky. It was brand new, right? You hadn't heard about it. And it made us look dreamy smart. It made us look.
I am perfectly fallible. There's a lot in astronomy that I don't know or have not heard about. I have not been keeping up with a lot of, particularly the recent events. I've been keeping up more with the whole early universe, massive galaxies thing, because actually SE Montreal has been asking me quite a bit about that. So
can you tell everyone about the troubles that some of the bullshit gives you with clickbait, and how people ask you questions of stuff that you really just, the difference between media stuff and clickbait stuff. And I'm not going to go into the artwork. I'm not going to do that to you right now, but just, I know you have frustrations with the way things are presented, and so do we. So I'm trying to find what we have in common in that respect. And I'm sure no one's ever heard you say it. I've heard it before, but I'm sure no one else has heard you talk about it.
Let me first you had talked about peer review, and again, I can only speak to astronomy. Peer review is different. The way that peer review is done is different in between sciences. One of the major differences is in astronomy, the reviewer is anonymous. You don't know who it is that's reviewing your work. So we talk about peer review as being this flawless kind of thing, and honestly, it isn't. Because human beings are a part of it, there are going to be flaws, and there are going to be certain controversies, particularly when a field of study is very new and not well researched. Because the way that peer review works is, at least again in astronomy, is that you send your paper to a journal. That journal, the journal editor will read through your paper to make sure that it's not, garbage, that it's not a whole bunch of run-on sentences, and basically that it makes some kind of sense. The editor will then select an expert in that arena. So someone who is well regarded and someone who is highly published in, say, young stellar objects. They'll pass my paper on to that person. That person will then read it, they will critique it, and they will pass their idea or their comments onto the editor, who will then forward it on to me. And then we have this back and forth between, the reviewer says you need to look at this, or may ask a question, why did you do it this way? I will then respond, and we will come to a meeting of the minds when it comes to how the paper should be a final edit. Now, I know this is long-winded.
Yeah, do me a favor. Just tell me you've been butthurt too, and then you'll gain a lot of friends here.
Well, I mean, yeah, has the review pissed me off? Sure, yeah. But the problem is that in fields that are, and this is kind of the problem a glaring problem that I see in peer review, is if you're talking about, say exoplanets when they first came out, really you only had two camps. You had two departments that were really dealing with exoplanets in the mid-90s. You had UC Berkeley and you had Harvard. It's a competitive field. You want to publish before someone else does. Unfortunately, the way the system is set up is that an editor can send your paper, and probably will send your paper, to your competitors. And so the competitor now has the other person's work in their hands. So they may drag their feet on making comments. They may be dishonest with it on the way they do it. Again, I'm not making accusations, but it's it's a system that can be very easily corrupted in those stages.
Now, that's not exactly peer review that's doing that, though. That's just any group, right? I mean, that's not science. In other words, that's not science. That's any group with power, like schools and stuff like that. It's not a science issue, really. It's a general bureaucracy.
Yeah, and in general, I trust peer review because in general, enough science comes out that the reviewers are going to be separate people. And so this idea of a they that is controlling the narrative, I've never seen it. I've never seen even a hint of it. So this idea that multiple reviewers are going to affect the same sort of outcome or narrative in scientific papers, I don't buy that. I don't buy it.
Now, that our work at the Salton Sea, and Wendell, if you're still listening, chime in at any point, was directly inspired by the fact that PBS Discovery and Nat Geo had misrepresented the geography of the location, because we can see across that 10-mile lake, and they're claiming that things are obscured by the Earth when they're only obscured by weather. And we have evidence of that over and over again, day and night.
Yeah. I was pointing to a comment. Keep going.
I can't. It's too small for you to read. So I just wondering, what do you think when we're watching ourselves be belittled to the tune of people that actually became overwhelmed with sickness and hardship because they were literally told by a narrative that their eyes weren't good, their word wasn't good, that they were no good, and that was published, and that was part of our lives.
And I didn't read what they had to say. I don't agree with that tactic. What I can say is, you had asked me about science communication, and yes, I have problems with science communication because in a good number of cases, it's clickbait. They want to generate sensationalism. And so they'll take something that is vaguely true, and then certain actors will distort it to make it seem like to make it seem bigger or more grand. One of the example that I'm thinking of is somebody cherry picked a quote. So when the first massive galaxies in the early universe were found, somebody basically made this quote that we have to rewrite all textbooks. Now, if taken in context, what he really meant was there's physics here that we hadn't really considered before. What the reviewer, the author of the website was saying is he was claiming what that person was saying is that all of cosmology was wrong, which is not true. I mean, yeah, it would be really cool if, really exciting if we said, oh yeah, we just made a discovery that basically says all of cosmology is bullshit. But that's not actually the case. Now, in terms of belittling people or making asses of them or trying to make them asses of them, and yeah, I'm not places like Nat Geo or what have you. I'm not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it. So, you use apples or you use an app. You use a Mac. I use a Mac.
It's crashing like crazy because I'm running out of space. I'm down to only 15 gigs, and it's complaining. But I keep a lot of tabs open, and it's really hurting.
You're doing a lot of IIQ research. I can see that.
I hate to say it, but I'm not that deep, and I don't belong in the same room with
said.
you and a professor, you and a PhD. Can you explain the difference? Because occasionally you correct me when I say Dr. Parks. And yeah.
So the difference between the two, and that's surprising that I would do that. A doctor is someone who has a doctorate of philosophy in a science. Come on, cat. I don't care. So that's a doctor, an academic doctor as opposed to a medical one. A professor is someone who teaches at the collegiate level. So you can have a professor who doesn't have a PhD. You can have a professor who only has a master's degree. And in some cases, like in English, you can actually have a professor who doesn't have a degree at all, who just is a very accomplished author.
Could you profess on the ism alone? In other words, could you just teach from the book before you and really be a heartless, empty tool? In other words, that's what we want you to be. We want to say the poor guy is being used. And I'm going to give you a quick example so you can relate it. Okay. I went to hire a guy, and he said that he had worked through electrical engineering, blah, 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 blah. And he had gotten a little grant out of JPL. I think it was 15 grand or something just to go through school. And in return, they made him go to junior high schools and elementary schools and talk about space. So in other words, the perpetuation was done by putting someone in debt who was doing outreach like you do. And, outreach, it's a good word because it is what it is. Yeah. So he was doing outreach to young people, but I'm not sure he knew anything, and I'm not sure he's not saying what he's supposed to. And you can see how that can happen. And my real question to you is, in the case of Nat Geo, do you understand that a crew of a dozen people went to go do a documentary segment and disregarded everything they saw because I'm sure they're without being liars, and the editing cutting room floor, they had no idea we really showed anything. Nobody did math. Nobody even checked for the expectations. But because the narrative when they got there was, it said, we're going to prove it's a globe. So I promise you, no one looked at that stuff. And yet there it was exposed to the world.
I cannot speak to Nat Geo's motivations because I obviously did not work for Nat Geo. I can say that during around 2015 to 2017, Flat Earth got a lot of press, a lot of national attention. There was the Netflix documentary, interesting, and a lot of that was taking the piss out of Flat Earth, good or bad. That's what it was.
From your perspective, nobody had heard of Flat Earth before the movie, really. Only YouTubers. So
Actually,
there
no,
was exposure, millions of people with Netflix, good, bad, or indifferent.
The first time that I heard about Flat Earth as anything other than just kind of rumors or what have you is B.O.B., the rapper. When B.O.B. came out and said he believed the Earth is flat, that to me was when I was like, okay, this is new. Then I heard something else, and it was actually some time after that I ran across the documentary. But so Tony is feeling better.
No shit.
So if you want, we can bring him in if you would like.
Do I need to do any tricks? Do I need to do anything different? Should I go back on my computer? I don't trust my computer.
No. Well, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to put an invite in the chat. And I am going to, what's it called? Tony can click on the chat and join if he would like to, but I would like to address one thing, which is that you mentioned the gentleman from JPL that he went into teaching. I am familiar with grants that have a stipulation for outreach, but that's because their ultimate job is going to be outreach. This is part of a training program. It's not like they're saying, aha, you want money? You must do this for us. No, that's part of what's going on. In the instances that I am aware of, then that is what's going on. I can tell you from a vast majority of my colleagues, myself, that when we get money from a funding agency, NASA, NSF, or what have you, we do not hear from them ever. The people that we are responsible to, the people that we are beholden to, it's actually the university we are a part of, because the university holds the money and they take 50% of it as overhead. And so when we spend that money, when we spend that grant money, it's not NASA that I'm justifying my spending to. It's not the NSF that I'm justifying. It's my university that I'm justifying to. They are the ones holding the purse strings. So Tony, welcome. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better, thank you. I have this sort of neurological thing that sometimes has me feeling tired and lightheaded and what have you, and sometimes it just clears up spontaneously. So I was feeling fairly crappy earlier today, as I was telling Dan, but I'm feeling much better now. So thought I'd come on and join you chaps. And nice to meet you in person, Rob. I don't think we've been.
I don't think we've ever been on the same stream yet.
Yeah.
I was excited to try and put us together as an opportunity to maybe pick a day of the week when we could do this that'll make it easier to invite other professionals to mix it up on these and certainly other subjects. It turns out when Tony and I talk, we find a lot of other things fascinating besides flat Earth. Also, there's a small chance that flat Earth is a short subject. If people had gotten around to doing any investigation, we may be very short-sighted as flat earthers, and we may have confused our real feelings about the state of affairs and the culture that we're in, and jumped the gun a little bit about the shape of the Earth. There is a lot of quote-unquote reinforcement and evidence out of space programs daily. And these people are interesting that we're talking to today because one looks up at that stuff and the other looks down from that stuff.
Yeah.
So eventually I want to talk more about light, and properties of light. I just learned something tragedy, guys. Tragically, I learned a little bit more about refraction and the refractive scale. We hear about it a lot, and you know, one being basically a 0 on the scale, or representing air itself. Surprisingly, they didn't mention nitrogen as a component. I guess they just included that in air. But I looked at it, and then I'm like, okay, it makes sense. And then as it turns to solids, it turns into the 2s, and then into liquids, it turns towards the 2s, and then into solids. And the fascinating thing about diamonds and the heavily refractive bouncing properties of that. I'm giving Tony a headache.
No, that's okay. But no. You're
But I'm like, okay, one what? 1.0006 what? You know? And I'm like, is that degrees? What the fuck is it? And then I asked somebody yesterday, and they're like, here's the story. It has to do with the speed of light, and it has to do with speed changes. And if it does hit this medium that happens to be cockeyed just enough, the left side of this beam and the right side are going to be at different speeds, and it's going to bend that way.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking,
and
that's what
on a plane on a boundary that's at an angle, then one side of the wave is going to hit first, and that's going to lead to a bending.
Okay,
so
excuse me.
The ratio of the velocities. That's all that number is. So it's unitless.
But as you refracted better, or is refracted more than red light.
Yeah.
Do you guys want a shovel to keep going? Because because the reality is that shit ain't happening at 5, 10, 15, and 20 miles where we work. Okay, that shit's happening at great distances. And you know that because time to have time be affected, it has to go through great distances. Otherwise, there's no way that type of refraction is bending my laser light. Period. End of story.
I would suggest that to me there are two confounding variables that you really need to check for, and you can say that you don't think that that's affecting your lasers, and that's fine. But if you want to convince other people, you're going to have to at least check the possibility that you're wrong, and B, the divergence of the laser, the size of the laser beam.
That's a different point. Whoa. That's something different because
is something different, but they're both. They are both.
They're both not there. They're both not a factor. You and I can prove that. You and I can prove that now. And I'm so the diverging beams each go back to the source. So if they spread out like a cone, each one on the edge of that cone, the very, very last beam, is still a direct line to the source, where we now have to start talking about refraction again to bend it. So the straight lines you want to bend that have diverged, you still need to bend.
Yeah, but this is so one of the things that you did to sort of well design your experiment was you did this experiment in multiple weather conditions, right? You did it in multiple atmospheric conditions, which is that's exactly what you're supposed to do. So, you deserve recognition and credit for that. But
my team, it's not my work, but it's like I'm the only one talking about it right now.
Well, imagine that this is your laser and this is the beam after it's diverged. And this is one refractive conditions, and this is another set of refractive conditions. So the fact that it's a beam, right? The fact that it's a cone, that it's an area, means that you can have different refractive conditions, but still hit your target. Okay, so it's the combination from my perspective, it's the combination of refraction and divergence that means that you can still hit the same target in different atmospheric conditions. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Well, it's completely theoretical, and I can show you otherwise and repeat it.
Okay.
So,
well,
yeah, and like I said, once I understand refraction, which we didn't have the time to really understand, it's impossible. Next, what they're hitting me now this year was a gradient. They don't even care if it's pressure gradient, temperature gradient, height gradient. They're just whipping the word at me. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to make them bust out 3 new maths because none of that applies either. Rob, I'm going to ask you to imagine this during your work because you shoot through layers of the atmosphere. But when I'm shooting at level, low levels, I'm probably not experiencing any gradients because I'm not experiencing any variations in height. So that gradient is probably done as an explanation.
The problem is, yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, so if the issue is that if you're on the surface of a ball or a sphere, right, and you fire a beam sideways, it automatically goes to higher air. So
based on
so if I've got a sphere, all right, let's use this. This is a sphere, okay. And if I shine a laser sideways, as it moves, it ends up in air that's higher above the surface.
How? Right? When? How?
I just showed you how. Follow my finger. It's going in a straight line, but the distance to the ground has increased.
That deviation from the tangent line doesn't happen in real life. It only happens with your fingers right there.
This is actually what's under investigation.
Yes.
Right. You can't claim that doesn't happen because
I know, but I can show you over 35 results. Over 35 results I can show you though. I'm not making a claim.
No, because
you're making a claim. You're making a claim.
All right, hold on.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No,
you're making a claim. Yes, you are.
Hold on.
Dan, this is something that happens a lot. You're suggesting that I should believe you.
I've demonstrated what I said. I didn't give you words. I gave you demonstrations.
So
it's different.
I'm finding myself in the position of being a moderator, and Dan, you are getting a little heated, so I just want to kind of.
And nobody's attacking you, okay? But this is what happens.
But you're denying the truth. That I'm not saying anything. I'm showing you 35 different results. I'm not just saying, well, it could be like this.
So
no, you're not. You're not. But what I'm suggesting is that in order for me to be convinced by your experimental results, I need certain variables to be ruled out. And so this is, and I understand your frustration here. You've done this and you find it very compelling, and that's fine. But I'm just explaining that for it to be compelling to me, you'd need to do some other things. Does that make sense?
It does, and I just got a message from the leader of our science team, and I'm going to give him the link because we have just way too much real world example. And this goes back to Rob's video. Why don't we listen to a professional in this case? It's like,
this is my input to this is that I agree with Tony in that it seems as you make the statement that you are not seeing deviation due to refraction from your laser. What?
No, we're not seeing deviation. I didn't include the word refraction. That's something you guys are using.
You're not seeing deviation. You're not seeing deviation. What Tony and I are saying is that given your data alone, and I don't really want to speak for Tony, but given your data alone, you cannot make that assertion. Because essentially what you are doing, and I'm going to bring Wendell into this.
Yeah, he's way more articulate than myself and seriously less emotional.
You have data, and you say, let's say 23 miles. I'm just going to throw that value out there. You see a laser light over 23 miles, and you say that you see no deviation whatsoever. In order to say that, you need to be able to predict what is your range, what is your observable range given a flat model, and what is the observable range given a globe model which includes refraction.
You get your shovel going.
And if the model the globe model with refraction says that in those conditions I can only see 15 kilometers, yet I'm seeing 25 kilometers, I'm going to sit up and take notice. But that's not what your data is showing. Your data is simply saying you see the light from 25 kilometers. When on simply a geometric ball, that would be impossible. But that's not what the globe ever states. And David, I cannot predict refraction. I can measure refraction based on, well, somebody can measure refraction based on the atmospheric conditions of the day. So.
Well, that's kind of the thing, because when we went to Salton Sea, there's a white paper that was done back in the late 70s where they were measuring the rate of refraction from the ocean, and then they wanted to go to an interior body of water that was salt water. And the results at Salton Sea, the refraction rate was null. So there wasn't any measurable refraction at Salton Sea for a number of reasons. So, when we're doing our distance observations, at least at that location, we aren't experiencing any refraction. And we've been there when it's been 114 degrees. We've been there in the winter. We've been there at varying distances, 9.77 miles, 18 miles, 27.5 miles during the day, at night. And we are, coming up with the same results, is that we can see too far. And we've been gathering all that, the temperature, the humidity, the barometric pressure, all those data points, and they're all over the place, and yet we are experiencing the same results.
So, real quick, you say that there's a white paper that tells you that there is no refraction at Salton Sea. Right?
When they measured it, yeah.
Okay. So, I would love to see that paper.
It's common. You can see it.
Because
we have only partial. We get blocked. You can see it. You have access to the whole thing.
Yeah. Because what globe science says is that the refraction index, or the amount of refraction, is going to vary based on those atmospheric variables that you stated. So the limiting distance for refraction is going to change by a certain amount based on the temperature, based on the air density, things of that nature. So when you say that there is no refraction at Salton Sea, I find that difficult to believe, because my first question is, under what conditions?
Did you say Did you say again?
Well,
without looking it up again?
Okay.
You did it again, Rob. Again, you did it.
I didn't
Hey,
say
Dan, this isn't
I
a
find
debate.
it hard to believe. I didn't say it wasn't possible. I said it was hard to believe, and I would like to
Where would you like me to post it? It's in front of me. Where would you like me to post it?
wherever you would like.
And this is another issue that I'd like to bring forth. You've got a data set that you claim is inconsistent with the globe model. I produced I haven't met you, Wendell, but a pleasure.
Oh, yeah. Hi,
Well, you have now.
But Dan and I were talking yesterday, and I showed him how seismic waves propagate are observed to propagate on the surface of Earth. And it's completely consistent with the spheroidal model and absolutely inconsistent with...
It's not relative to the properties of light, which we're discussing now, Tony. And I have discussed that with him, and we could discuss that another time. But you're sidetracking because you want to go to your area of expertise? You got a headache? Stay with your headache. We're on a particular subject. But we can't test the things you're talking about, Tony. We're talking about the things we tested. We're talking about the things we tested. Not the things you've tested. Now, when you...
Dan, I muted you because you are not allowing Tony to finish. I'm assuming that he is going to move from side. Keep this calm.
Yeah, let's just keep this calm. The point that I'm trying to make is that there are other data sets out there, other observational data sets out there that don't agree with the Earth being flat. And so while, even if you have a data set that you claim, you haven't addressed these other data sets. And so we are instinctively, we're going to look for well, you can't. What you're proposing cannot explain these other observations. So we're going to really dig in to the detail of what you've done. We're really going to want all of your I's dotted, all of your T's crossed, and any gaps, any confounding variables that you fail to consider, we're going to belabor them because we have these other data sets. I'm just that's all I wanted to say. Sorry.
No.
It was a waste of Dan's time.
Sorry, Dan was doing the thing with his mouth.
Because everything he said leads to why we're at the Salton Sea. Wendell, can you tell them why we went to go double check what we were being told? Because that's as scientific as we could get, isn't it?
Well, okay, I'll give him a little bit of background for me. Was that there's a guy, Rob Skiba, you may know him. I saw him at a prophecy conference, and then about a year after that, I highly respected him, but I found out he got into flat Earth. And I said, oh my God, Rob, you've gotten off the deep end. But I felt bad that I just wrote him off without really listening to what he had to say. So I went out to his website, Testing the Globe, and I just went right to the conclusions tab. And I started reading through it and like, oh, wait a minute, this is, and he was talking about other topics too, like NASA and going to the moon and all that. But I thought, you know what, I need to dig a little deeper here. So there happened to be a meetup in Arcadia. And that was when Nat Geo was there interviewing all the prominent, flat earthers. I wasn't a flat earther, but I found out that there was this experiment, this observation that was going to be down at Salton Sea. And IIG West was there from the International Center for Inquiry. And so I had a choice of being either on the observation shore or on the experiment side of the shore, which was on a place called Capri Road. And so they filled up the first part of the experiment. They filled up these big helium balloons, and they were going to lift up this mylar banner that was about 3 feet wide and 20 feet long. And they had calculated at that distance, 9.77 miles, that you had to get up above about 35 feet before you'd be able to see it because of the dip in the horizon and Sagita and all that. So I was helping him with that. And there was one other person that I met there, Nathan Gonzalez, met him at the meetup, and then he happened to show up on that side that day as well. I thought everyone was a flat earther was there, but Nathan and I were the only ones. Well, and I wasn't even a flat earther. But so what happened was there wasn't enough helium in the balloons, so they took the balloons up to from the water's edge back up to the road, Capri Road, to fill them up with more helium. And Nathan was talking to another friend of ours who was on the other shore, observation shore, and he had a P900. And they're like, well, let's try to at least find these balloons because they're having problems locating them. And he happened to notice when they were FaceTiming together that there was this semi that was on a road highway behind him. So they were actually able to, with this P900, zoom in and see the balloons on the road, on Capri Road, which I had my phone out and I'm videoing all this because I found it interesting. And so then the guys from IIG West said, oh, you found it? Tell our guys over there so they can get our cameras on it. And then once everyone can see what's going on, then we'll lift the balloons up and we'll continue with the experiment. So they found it. All the eyes were on these balloons, and they lifted up to about 50 feet. And then one of the balloons popped, and that was the end of that. But then I turned to the guy and go, wait a minute. So we're about 13 feet up when we went back and measured, 13 feet off of the water. And then there was about 3 feet of rope. And then these balloons were about 6 feet in diameter. Well, that's only like 18 feet. And we could see them from the other shore. That's already behind the curve. So that was the impetus to go back and start doing these other observations with lasers and mirror flashes and all that to try to validate, what was going on. We even, I met with the guy that one of the
oh, Wendell, is it me that's frozen or is it Wendell that's frozen?
I think it's Wendell that's frozen.
All right. Real quick, Dan, I see that you put something in chat, a paper in chat. If you could tell me the title, if you put the title and the authors in chat, I can look it up and see if I have access to it.
But
Wendell, you are buffering.
Yeah.
So the advice from him was to use multiple colored lasers, which we got a blue laser, we got a green laser, we got a violet laser, we got a red laser, just to test the different light waves to see if there was any differences. And the only ones that we really observed was propagation. The blue was best, the green was best, then blue, then probably red. It was really hard to see.
You mean brightness, the intensity of the light?
Yeah.
When you say propagation, you mean brightness of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But we use mirror flashes too, and so that the point is that not only are you dealing with light bending, and actually Professor Troy, when you were talking about how on a globe model, when you're looking straight out, you're looking up into the atmosphere through different layers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but that's assuming that we're on a globe model, that we're on a sphere. One of the things that we witnessed on our 18-mile observation is that when we shot the laser beam straight out, it was through the same column of air, like horizontally, not vertically, and it was fine. We could see it great from shore to shore. But when I pointed the laser up, it hit another colder column of air, and we could see that laser beam start bending up into that colder layer that was an inversion layer that was coming down on top of the warmer air next to the water. So we know when it bends. When we were doing our 27.5-mile observation, it was interesting because Dan, he was on the Capri side and I was down at the South Shore, and he goes, "Quit moving the laser." And I'm like, "I am not moving it." And what happened was this cold inversion layer came in and started moving. 20 feet in front of me, I saw the laser light bend because of this cold air coming in. But conversely, the other times it wasn't moving at all. So because atmosphere is a dynamic fluid, you would imagine then that if there is refraction going on in that column of air, that the laser light wouldn't be fixed; it would be moving around, which is what we experienced when it did. But what about all those other times that it didn't?
So when you're talking about moving around, that's essentially twinkling. The reason why stars twinkle is because it is passing through a active or variable column of air. Now, I've heard you say that we see no refraction. Well, that's, if you understand what refraction is doing, that's not possible, because everything you see is going to be refracted. So there's no way you cannot see fraction happening. But the point that I really want to get to,
I'd put it slightly different. Sorry for cutting you off, Rob.
No, go ahead.
It's very difficult to say you see refraction because you're seeing along a light path. It's going to look straight even if the light path is curved. So you're looking straight from one thing to another. You can see that other thing because the light's getting to you, but you've got no idea whether or not that path was refracted or not. You can't tell just by looking at the fact that the light has gone from you to somewhere else that it hasn't refracted.
Yeah.
More than likely it has.
Well, I can tell you, I know when it's refracted, I was just going to say, when the laser beam is moving like a snake back and forth in front of me, it's refracted because of that colder column of air.
Yeah, the fact that you can identify some classes of refraction doesn't mean that you can necessarily identify all classes of refraction.
Right. Yeah.
So when we do an experiment, the thing that we often do is we basically are testing models. So when we look at, for example, with my work with YSOs, I was looking at variability mechanisms. I knew from physics of how, basically, spectral energy I'm not going to get into the weeds, but I had an expectation the light curve is going to look this way if it's a star spot. The light curve is going to look this way if it's a blob coming in front of the star. Basically, I have expectations of what the data should look like. And then when I take the data, I will compare it to those models. And the one that matches best, I now have strong evidence that that is physically what is going on. So in this case, what really needs to happen is you need to look at a flat Earth model, see what variables there would be, what kind of refraction there might be, or what have you, and then see how far you can see. And then you have to do that with a globe. You can call it assuming a globe, but that's how science is done. You have to model what the globe is. You have to include all of the characteristics of refraction, so that you can say definitively we are seeing too far, because you have frequently have said, you and Dan have said, we see too far with the globe. But aren't you also assuming a globe? When you say you see too far with a globe, all you are doing is saying you are seeing too far for a geometric sphere. But that is not what the globe model is saying, that the Earth is a simple geometric sphere. It is a geometric sphere surrounded by varying layers of gas with varying indices of refraction. So that needs to be modeled and then compared to your results.
I'd like to jump in to say a couple of things if I could, Rob. It's clear that you and Dan are both very diligent, and you're both trying to get to the truth here. And I applaud that. I really applaud the amount of work that you're both putting in to trying to get there. All we're trying to do is suggest how you could make this experiment sufficiently persuasive that it would have an impact on us. Yes. Because at the moment, with the way things stand, there are just some confounding variables that you haven't taken into account, and we're going to say, well, let's look at those confounding variables in detail. And so nobody's attacking you guys. Nobody's saying you're making anything up. Nobody's saying that this is an ill-conceived concept or that you're an idiot for asking. All of this is fine. We're just trying to suggest some ways that you can make your results more robust. That's all we're trying to do.
I appreciate you keeping us honest, and we've tried to construct better mousetraps every time we go out. So definitely appreciate your feedback or any kind of tips, or where we can really nail this down. Because for the moment it's like, wow, I don't know. When we're doing, I think our longest was 35.8 miles out on the Utah Salt Flats, where we were seeing the same thing. And the Sagita alone is like 280 feet. So it's not just a matter of that it's, maybe like going around the Sagita. It's like we shouldn't be able, if we're getting a straight shot with the laser, it's going through all of that. And what's interesting about the salt flats, just as a side note, is that there is, water that it builds up about, a few inches, because that's where the Bonneville Speedway is. And that's what makes it so flat. So if we could see optically with the laser across this great distance, and there should have been, 280 something feet of Sagita there, then you would think then that during the rainy season, that as the water built up, there would be 280 feet of water there. And there's not. There's only a few inches of water throughout that, whole area.
I can explain to you exactly why that is. Because Lake Bonneville is actually not flat. It was surveyed in the 19th century by a guy who worked out that the entire Lake Bonneville is tilted. And the reason it's tilted was because during the time that it was formed, there was a gigantic ice sheet in North America that was pushing down and also exerting gravitational traction on the water in that periglacial lake. So the entire my academic speciality is actually glacial isostatic adjustment. the term isostatic was coined by the surveyor who surveyed the coastline in Lake Bonneville. So, we know in detail the geometry of Lake Bonneville. It looks flat.
Do you think Wendell didn't go over that with us before we got out there? Do you think Wendell doesn't know those exact numbers right now? Do you think he doesn't know those exact numbers right this minute?
No, I appreciate that information, Dr. Troy.
I'm not suggesting that Wendell doesn't know anything.
Well, we did a lot of research before we go out, and we're not just going to be stumped because of your speculation.
What speculation are you accusing me of?
Well, of calculating the numbers that you're going to include and asking why that still didn't affect the observation. Include your slant, all 49 feet, I think, if we go far enough. Right, Wendell? 47? What is it?
What are you referring to, Dan?
The slope that he's talking about over 40 miles out there.
Well, the reason I brought up the salt flats is because we have actually been there, so we're eyewitnesses. But I mean, if we want to take it to an extreme, you should talk about the Salar de Uyuni down in Bolivia, where they use it to calibrate the satellites. That's been measured at at 45 miles. There's less than a meter of difference from one side to the other.
Yes,
so even there,
that's a difference in elevation. Elevation is measured relative to the reference geoid. It is not. So the deviation of less than a meter is less than a meter from a curved surface. I happen to, my academic speciality when I did my PhD was glacial isostatic adjustment. I now work on satellite gravimetry, so I know quite well how satellite altimetry is done. This stuff that you're talking about, we understand well what that means, what that less than a meter change in elevation means. It means that it's less than a meter change in elevation above the reference ellipsoid. That's
as measured now from a different reference point than normal, because normally we're measuring from the center of the earth when you use that curvature story. Now you're measuring it from the sky. So where did that calculation come from?
So so you can solve for the that when a satellite's going around the Earth, it's orbiting Earth's center of mass. So from the satellite configuration where the center of mass is, and you can calculate the distance from the satellite to the surface.
What we mean is, why is there only a meter of deviation? That's what we mean. Why is there only a meter of deviation?
That's because
that's what we mean.
Why is there is only a meter of deviation from the reference ellipsoid, because for starters, the geoid is reasonably flat in that area. Not all areas are equally flat in terms of geoid, but also because of the geological process by which salt flats form, which is by having large, still bodies of water with high evaporation rates that leave behind large layers of salt. That's how that's formed. So the geometry of the salt flats conforms with an equipotential surface. And in some areas, those are always going to look flat, but in some areas they actually are flatter than others. For instance, if you look at equipotential in India, sea level at the southern tip of India is more than 50 meters lower than it is in northern India. Because we can map sea level using the same altimetry techniques, and we can show that sea level is not a flat surface. It varies with Earth's gravitational field. So these arguments again, that we're sort of deviating into the why you guys have such a high evidentiary burden in what you're setting up. I have studied the shape of the Earth and its gravitational field for more than 30 years, full-time, 8 hours a day. And if you're going to come along and tell me that everything that I've studied is wrong, I'm going to ask you to produce an equivalent amount of evidence to convince me.
So this is, if I had the resources, this is what I would do. Because we know that like during the winter down there at the Salar de Uyuni, the depth of the water is inches, right?
Mhm.
So if we were able to then take a laser or some other, I don't know, radar or whatever, and shoot across that and be able to see straight across, then, and we know that it's already flat, the what should be there as far as the Sagita is concerned, it would, at 45 or 50 miles, it should block whatever we're trying to, beam through there. So it can't, it has to be one or the other. Either it is a slice. Let's, picture a ball. Where's my camera here? Picture a ball. It's either like a slice off the top of the orange and everything is flat there, and then that's what it is measuring against. Or if it is actually, you know, spherical, that in other words, the measurement of its flatness is in direct relation to the curvature of the Earth, then during the winter, when it fills up with water, out in the middle, it should be hundreds of feet deep.
Okay,
Because
so
it would. I mean, am I making any sense?
There are two confounding variables, and I was explaining this to Dan earlier. So not that you weren't here. I don't know if you were watching, but you weren't on screen, so I'm going to explain it again. So suppose this is your mirror. Okay. Sorry, let me just get back to the right window. So suppose that this bottom face with Kleenex written on it, brand placement, you can sponsor it. Suppose that's the mirror, and you fire a laser beam from over there, and then the laser beam diverges, okay? And its footprint when it gets to the mirror is like this envelope. In some refractive conditions, it's up here. In some refractive conditions, it's up there. And in some refractive conditions, it's up there. So you need to consider so the fact that you're doing it in multiple different refractive conditions, that's great. But you also need to consider the divergence of the beam. How large is that beam when it gets to that mirror? Because that really changes. If this is only pencil, width, then and it's hitting the same, it's hitting exactly the same point of the mirror. That's fine. Then you've proved your point. But if you haven't considered those, then you haven't proved your point. Does that make any sense?
When we first started testing across there, fortunately for me, there's an online divergence calculator. So you take the wattage of the laser and you can put all the numbers in, and it worked out to be about 95 feet. So because it was like a 3 watt laser, 3 milliwatt, I don't know. Anyway, when we got over to the other side, the observation side, what was interesting, and I brought a tape measure to measure across on the shoreline from where you could, because you could see as you moved across, moved your head across, you could see when you were actually looking directly back into the laser beam and when you weren't. And it was just moving your head one side of, well, that's the edge of it right here. That's where the divergence line is. And taking the tape measure, it was 95 feet. So the online calculator was, relatively, accurate. So I know what you're saying as far as the, beam diverging and being able to, measure some of that. However, what I would say, and in our observations, is that, according to Snell's law, refraction only happens when it moves from one medium into another. And I think what we've experienced is that whole column of air, that whole layer of air, either across the ground or across the water, it isn't moving into another medium to actually refract. It's all the same medium that light is, traveling through.
Not according to. First off, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Sorry,
okay.
you were muted a little while ago. I think I was talking all over you, but we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So there's a couple things I want to say about that, and I think I just lost the first one that I was going to mention about refraction. Is it goes back to the ball again with the globe model. If you are looking straight, by definition, you are looking through you're gaining height in your line of sight, and that is where the difference in refraction comes in. But I kind of want to step off a little bit and kind of address Dan for a moment. Dan, I saw you beating your head as Tony was speaking. Earlier in the stream, you talked about faith. You talked about taking things on faith. it strikes me that you're getting very agitated because we are not taking you on faith, that we are not accepting these. I don't know where your anger is coming from.
I've been on many serious conversations with many smart people that we all know, Ruhif, Nugator, many people that will analyze the spreading and understand that each spread is a beam directly to the source, and that it isn't in contention to change the direction of deviate. There is no deviation of each beam. Each beam goes from the source, and each beam is unique. Do you understand that? Each one is unique and straight.
Yeah, but do you
Spreads
understand?
out.
Do you understand the point that I'm? Well, there are two things that I want to say here. Sorry to cut you off, Dan. But there are 2 points that I want to. I think Dan is getting frustrated, not because we're not taking him on faith, because he is presenting evidence. And he thinks that the evidence is extremely persuasive. And that's where his frustration is coming from, because we seem to be denying the evidence that he considers to be persuasive. And I'm just saying that, and I'm just trying to reiterate, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, okay, if we appreciate that you've gone out and gotten evidence, but in order to make the argument that you want to make, you need to consider these confounding variables. The second point that I'd like to make is that yes, each of those beams that spreads out is unique, but you need to, so you've done this over multiple weather conditions, right? And you're saying that it doesn't matter what the refractive conditions are, you hit the mirror every time. Okay,
it's not a mirror every time. Don't speak for what we've done. The reality is so much different than this. A diverging beam is connected directly to the source regardless. So you have to go back to refraction. You're done with converging and diverging as soon as you realize what it really means. Go back to where we were. That's what I'm trying to say. When you start backpedaling to converging and diverging, you're not paying attention to the properties of light. You're already exaggerating the fact that refraction, having to do with the speed of light, is being affected enough across these short distances to, within the width of the beam, to be pushing it along the beam enough to have affected the speed of light. Do you understand what you're expecting us to believe? So we're on to weather, okay? We're on to weather. It's not about measurements of the Earth. It's on to weather, right?
And may I speak? Have you? So over this 23-mile observation, what type of angular deflection is necessary to explain your result?
Obviously, Wendell, you'll know more about that than myself.
Yeah,
and
I define angular deflection.
Okay. If here's the straight line, here's your mirror, there's the laser. I want to know the angle between subtended by these 2 points at the laser.
While I give Wendell a moment to put together that answer, I'm going to point out to you that you're imagining this experiment, which means you have watched nothing we've done. You've taken it on faith because you, like me, that we pulled off anything, and you've watched nothing because the exact thing you described has never happened. Never once. That experiment has never been performed by us. That shows you the bias that you have coming in here, the confusion that you're bringing to regular people, and the disaster that we all have with accidental BS that we end up going, you're a liar, you're a liar. You're not a liar. You're just sort of sorting in your head what you think we might have done. You haven't researched it. You haven't watched 8 minutes of it. Trust me, because we haven't done that observation that way.
Dan, from what I'm getting from Tony, and again, I don't want to speak for the man, he was addressing the question of what do you mean by angular deflection? And so he
hasn't looked at anything we've done, and he's asking, gee, we don't know why you haven't made it more definitive. The fucker hasn't watched.
Hey, no,
Come on,
that's
Dan.
not acceptable.
Well, it
Dude,
is when you look at what he said and what he
calm
accused
down.
what he accused me of is not being
Calm.
complete enough in data sets. Now the reality is the high quality footage hasn't come out at all, right? So the
Dan, I've muted you because you called one of my
Thank
guests
you,
a
Professor
fucker.
Parks.
You call one of my guests a fucker. That's not going to be tolerated. I won't tolerate it from you. I won't tolerate it from Dan. I won't tolerate or from Tony. I won't tolerate it from Wendell. We are trying to have a calm, productive conversation. There's a lot of anger coming out of you, and you know I would really love to talk to find out why that is. But you know, Tony is going to you know, I don't know if Tony's watched this stuff, but so
the reality is that I haven't, and there's a reason for that, because I'm not an expert in optics, nor am I an expert in laser surveying. So my opinion on whether or not you've done things properly is actually worthless. So all I can say is, you know, is give my opinion. And if I've mischaracterized you and lied about you, that was not my intent. I did not intend to misrepresent what you were doing. But the question that you seem outraged by remains valid. And it's the key question that we've been talking about for ages, which is assuming a globe model, how much angular deflection would be needed for that light to bend to hit the mirror. That's the calculation. So you need to do that calculation of the distance between your mirror and where that lateral line would be, and that will tell you how big an effect you need. Because what you seem to believe is that it requires a large effect. But if it's only like 30 feet of curvature that's needed over 23 miles, that's an extremely small angular deflection. You don't need a big effect to explain that. And so rejecting it out of hand and saying, well, you know, we don't need to consider this. If you want to eliminate the possibility that your results can be explained by refraction, you have to understand the magnitude and the nature of the effects that refraction is being required to explain. Does that make sense, Wendell?
Yeah, and let me give you a bit of data, and hopefully it answers more of your question. So in one of our the first observations with the blue laser, I used to be in construction, and I have what's called a hydro level, and basically what it is a long like a quarter-inch tubing that has water in it, and it stretches out for like 20 feet. So what we did was we set up the blue laser, we shot it across the water. I set level at when it came out of the laser, and then we went down, 20 feet down and held up the hydro level to make sure that laser beam was going level across the water. So we were like literally 90 degrees from the water, parallel to the water, but so it was going directly out across the water to the other side. Now, at that same observation, we also used a tactical light, was on the other side shining back towards the laser, and we could see it was like 2,000 lumens or something. We could see the tactical light shining back at us until it actually it disappeared when it went under the water, because it was a very clear night and there wasn't a lot of turbulence in the water waves or whatever. So then again, I mean, there should, at the 9.77 miles, there's something like a 17 or 23 foot Sagita that should have blocked, any of that light coming through.
It should have, in the absence of refraction and divergence effects, and this is the element that we're going to keep on coming back to, because I understand your line of reasoning here, and I really do.
Tony, you never bothered to look while accusing us of not presenting it well enough. That's the end of this part of the conversation. Parks, let's talk about something else. He's already proven he didn't care to look. Do you understand? You're not in a position to argue. Don't do it to me.
Dan,
Don't do that to me. We have a good opportunity to be friends here. We can talk. You got a headache. You're overwhelmed, and it's not fair what you've done. Don't present it any different. Wendell's here with a lot of technical data, but to pretend that we didn't fucking produce and you never looked is bullshit.
Well, Dr.
Thank
Tony
you.
was actually going to answer a question that it's been kind of, going around in my noodle. When we're talking about all of the different, like 35 different observations with different temperatures, and actually some on the same day, there was like these extremes, and yet getting the same result. So I would say, Occam's razor demands that then the Earth is flat. There is no curvature. But so with all these different varied weather conditions, I welcome an explanation for that.
Well, I've already provided the explanation twice.
Okay, I'll listen a little better then.
Okay. So again,
Tony, please, I'm not going to get mad. I'm just going to say your explanation did not include one of the calculations that you expected us to produce. Now you're absolutely using the word as an excuse with none of the calculations, because when you flip the variables around, which we have, you'll find your calculations are worthless. The pressure didn't matter. The temperature didn't matter. Trust me on this. We're not going through the mediums. I'm sorry, Rob. We're not going through the mediums that are suggested. We're not making this up, and we have tried to show you.
All right. So
Okay.
actually, Tony, I want to step in and take this for a second. And Wendell, this is my explanation. I've said this to Dan. I will say this to you. If you want to convince me, if you want to get me to really pay attention, what I would like you to do is you have the atmospheric data for those days. I would like you to tell me, according to the globe refractive model, how far can you see? Because in answer to your question of all this varying stuff, and we're still seeing it, is if you find out that the range, or the observable range, given all that variation, is a minimum of 50 miles, then your observations of 25 miles are well within range. So they are well within what is expected on the globe, even given all of those varying variables, temperature and so forth. You will, with those, for me, what you need to do is for each of those days, you need to tell me, given our model, given the refractive model, you need to tell me what is the expectation of how far can I see? And if your measurements, or if your distances of 25 kilometers or what have you, is larger than that expectation, then you have something. Just simply saying that you can see it based on even in differing weather conditions doesn't address the fact that globe could predict that you can see those distances given those weather conditions. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
No. I just put a calculator into your chat. A child can type in the miles that we worked at, and you can see how the actual globe is measured each time to not change, because it's a real thing.
Dan, I asked Wendell if he followed what I was saying.
I'm sorry.
I follow what you're saying, Professor Parks. I just don't know in each, and maybe this is something you can help with. We can tell you exactly where we were at, and we can look at the weather data for that day that's published and determine are you talking about like visibility, what the visibility should have been?
There's the confounding variable of, if there's dust in the air, how far. But I'm just strictly talking about, and I'm not even bringing up diffusion. All I'm talking about is a single beam diffraction. How far, or refraction, how far would you be able to see something based on refraction alone? And then once you've done that, then we can add the confounding variable of diffusion, of the fact that the light spreads over distance. So if you can basically tell me, all right, given this weather condition, or given this weather conditions, this is based on the amount of refraction that you would expect. This is how far over the curvature of the Earth I would be able to see.
Right. Let me I'll throw in another wrench. So when we went from the Salt Flats up to Bear Lake, which is on the border of Utah and Idaho, and it was during the winter, and it started snowing when we were making our observation, and there was it's 18 miles across the lake, and so this was really kind of weird. We've experienced some really weird phenomena out there. So I was on the North Shore, Dan was on the South Shore, and we would find each other with our lasers. But when we had this time lapse, we had footage from the North Shore, could clearly see Dan's laser. From this time lapse that we have from the South Shore, it clearly shows that there's this like a black line at the horizon, and you can see the laser beam like going. It's the diffracted part of the laser beam above that black line, but not the source of the laser, right? So the best that I can figure is that because they were at the down at the water's edge, and we were on this boat launch thing that was about maybe like 10 or 15 feet above the water, is that they were in a colder inversion layer, so that we could see their beam coming up through that colder layer and then hitting a warmer layer. But as we being 15 to 20 feet up higher, we're already in that warmer layer of air. And as it went down and hit that cold inversion layer, according to Snell's law, it was a thicker medium, so it just bounced off, and you weren't able to see the source of the laser. Does that sound about right?
Yes, as far as my expertise goes, I am also, as Tony had said, I am not an expert in refraction. So what I would say to that is, as scientists, we want to rely on tangible, measurable data. So just saying it looks like this or it looks like that, maybe, but unless we have the data, unless we actually do the calculation and actually figure out what's actually going to be predicted to happen, it's hard for us to say. So that is a reasonable hypothesis, I think.
Okay.
But ultimately, you would need the data to show that that was actually true.
Right.
So
we're still learning.
I mean, no, and
like, oh man.
Again, with Tony, I applaud that you, unlike a lot of flat earthers that I have met, you all are actually doing work. You are doing experimental design, and I put this forward to Austin. I put this forward to Dan. What I would like to see, granted, my free time at the moment is next to nothing. But what I would like to see is for a meeting of the minds, a calm meeting of the minds, where you have people such as yourself, and you have people who are experts in refraction, or at least middling experts in refraction, and you set up the experiment. You properly figure out, all right, this is what I need to do. This is the variables I need to measure at these locations to be able to truly map out the refractive arc. And, make this a collaborative effort between Flat Earth and Globe Earth, and do this right. Do this so that you're satisfied and that we are satisfied. And Dan, you're still muted. I didn't do it this time.
When we had lunch at Caltech, Nathan had lunch with an optics expert next to consultants for JPL and theoretical, quantum physicist Spiros Makalakis. They are willing to meet with us, willing to spend time with us just like you are.
Okay.
But they're not willing to jeopardize their career.
Yeah.
And that's the reality that we're up against, guys. And that's why I'm here talking to you, because you're willing to talk to us. Forget it that I'm an asshole. We got more than an uphill battle here, guys. And
I'm going to reiterate I'm going to
Go
reiterate what Tony has said. Do not have the same length of expertise that Tony has. He has spent far more time in his field than I have. But what I can say is that in the time that I've spent, a flat Earth is irreconcilable to the astronomy that I know. So effectively, it's not about my career. It really is not about my career. And I'm getting somewhat losing patience with people saying that it is. It's not about my career. It's about that everything that I have learned, everything that I have done, the experiments that I have done, show me that the Earth is a sphere. And so if you're going to tell me that the Earth is flat, that to me is an extraordinary claim. It's going to require extraordinary evidence. It's not about my career.
You do know that the Earth is flat is a battle cry for something's wrong.
You've said that to me before in a previous stream.
I actually think that that's a self-defeating position. So you can...
Tony, you didn't look at our evidence.
Hey.
You were willing to comment about it, and it was out of his field. Look at this. It was out of his field. But listen to it. Yeah, he deserves... Came in with a headache, right? He came in with a headache. He began to comment out of context of anything he knows about without watching the evidence. And you wonder why. He also missed the fact that you and I were talking about this. What goes wrong with science? How people can bring bias. We absolutely were talking about this to begin with.
Dan, I understand. And Tony was having a headache. He didn't feel well. He felt that for whatever reason, he wanted to come on. He wanted to battle through it or go through it. And when he was trying to make a point, you angrily interrupted him.
Unlike you, he tried to defend the globe. Unlike you, who was willing to have a conversation, his defense allowed him an opinion without data set. Zero information, yet he maintained an opinion. Think about that, Rob. Give me that.
So, yes, he admitted that he didn't look at your experiment, but what he was talking about and what I'm talking about is generalities. This is what you need to do in order to actually have the evidence that is extraordinary for us to pay attention.
Okay, I made my point today that you and I can be civil and that we talk about stuff. You don't pull that shit. You don't pull that shit that he pulled. You and Wendell can talk, Wendell, and you can invite someone else on. You guys can have a lot of great stuff to talk about. I've made a great point tonight. That's the kind of shit we're up against. And you asked in your video, why don't we believe science? And look what Science Guy did to me tonight. Look what he did to me.
So I have to say, I don't see what he did to you.
He had opinions without data. He did not look at evidence. And yet he insisted upon speaking beyond his expertise even. Fuck that. Fuck that.
The thing is, I have essentially been saying the same thing that Tony said. We're talking about how an experiment can be done, where the appropriate evidence can be, or the extraordinary evidence can be gained.
The expert on this subject is Wendell at this point. He's done more than you, me, or anyone else that we can talk to. Well, in this case,
I'm a jack of all trades and master of none.
I am not. I'm just saying bullshit is bullshit. And when we get treated like shit for no reason, like he accidentally did tonight, because I like the man. He accidentally did that. He didn't mean to. He's frustrated. He's trying not to blow his top because of it, but he made a mistake. That's not cool.
I don't see where I don't see where he was.
Really, he never looked at anything we done. He depicted them at wrong distances with wrong setups. Continued to depict them in his own mindset. Okay. With mirrors at 23 feet, it's like 20. It's like none of that ever happened. He's not. He hasn't looked. He hasn't checked. Yet he's got an opinion that makes him ignorant and foolish. And he's a better man than that. And you should admit that this is what I'm up against, because that's why I came on to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your expertise, and also Dr. Tony's expertise. It'd be great to tap into that to help build a better mousetrap. One of the things that I was going to ask Dr. Tony about was that as far as, like getting back to Solar de Uyuni, so those measurements are against the is it the GS84 model, right? Where it tells you what the calculations should be for the Earth at that geographic point, kind of thing. So it would be interesting then to actually be able to go into that code, because let's assume that the Earth actually is indeed flat. Then there should be somewhere in the code where you can find that those calculations aren't for a sphere or spherical or elliptical, but that they are for a flat surface. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not familiar with this code at all, to be honest with you, so I don't know how much I can.
And I don't
on
write
it.
code or anything like that either, so I wouldn't even know where to look, or if you could even get into it to look.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, if you can get your hands on the source code, then it depends on if the code is open source. If it's open source, like on GitHub, then you can get a hold of it and parse through it. But I'm not familiar with that code at all.
If you could find in the code where it did account for, a spherical Earth, and then that measured data was against that data set, okay, so.
All right. I mean, yes. I mean, if you were to, I was going to say, if you were to send me the code, I'll try to look into it. But I honestly don't have free time to do that.
Maybe Dr. Tony has it. He might have access to it.
But the thing that all right. Blue is talking. Blue, if you have the time to look into what that is, let me know. But I'm going to actually ask you the same question that I asked Dan, is that you have Professor Tony, PhD Tony, 30-year veteran, as it were, of geological studies. You have myself, an astronomer of, it's hard to count because I'm a traditional, but, 15 years of astronomical knowledge. Why is it that when we tell you that
I think you froze up there. Oh, you're back.
I'm back. Well, I just heard Dan say something about we're fucking idiots. But so
whoa, I didn't say that. Hang on. Where? How? When?
I heard, I don't know if anyone else heard, but I heard what sounded like
maybe it was through Discord.
Okay. Let's try not to do that, please. Where was I going with this? So yeah, you have years
of experience.
Tony's expertise. We have years of experience, and we say that, this is what is going on. This is the reason why you would expect it to seem as if it were flat. Why don't you trust us?
Just because, again, the impetus of the start of my real journey was the expertise of IAG West were out there trying to do an observation legitimately, and then there was this disconnect. When I talked to the head guy on my side at Capri, and I said, well, look, shouldn't we, you're seeing these balloons here on the road that are well below the 35 feet that we shouldn't be able to see below. And so what's up with that? And it was like deer in the headlights. He didn't even have an answer for me. Right.
Okay.
So, and when the one that they did show on the Nat Geo episode.
1 second. One second, please. I don't know who's doing that, so I'm just going to randomly. I'm going to kick that guy. So sorry, you were saying that the gentleman in question had no
answer. Yeah. And when they did do the segment that was on Nat Geo, after that, they called that a failed experiment because one of the balloons popped. So Sydney Silver had painted this big like flag of 6 bars on a canvas. And so they took that out in this little boat about 3 miles. So the Sagita at that point would have been like 1.5 feet or something like that. And, they said, on there, oh, we'll see, there it is right there. It's covering up, the first couple of, 6-inch, lines. And there it is, proof. There, the Earth is round.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you go back and look at the footage, it's like, no, I'm counting 6 lines on this thing. And maybe the bottom 6 inches, because the waves were like 4 to 6 inches high, is covered. And you can also see the horizon behind the boat. So it couldn't have been any kind of Sagita that was covering up the flag. So it's just this disingenuous. I mean, I genuinely want to do, good science. I'm not a science denier or anything like that. But, from that experience and then getting more involved with the flat earth community and, going to these conferences and, I was, pulled aside and interviewed on this TV newscast because it was real, it was big back in 2015, 2016, 2018 is when I did it. But, they interviewed me for 15 minutes and then took like 5-second soundbite and then made us look like idiots. It's just like, what the heck?
I don't approve of that. It was a shitty thing for them to do. It sounds like Nat Geo, and I think a lot of people, even Globers, will admit that the Nat Geo experiment or show was biased and bullshit. But that's Nat Geo.
Right.
I can understand you not trusting them.
Right. So professionals, I always say, like, please save me from flat earth because no one's been able to explain yet, like, what the heck's going on here,
To be
So
honest,
I'd
they
love them
just
to be
they just reported it. They didn't have anything to do with it. They just reported it. So in fact, they can claim to be misled, but their zero fact checking is of suspect nature. They were not part of the experiment. They were observers, and they were just observers in that case. So that just be aware that they did not orchestrate any portion of it, and they will weasel out by claiming that they just really never double checked anything. They went with the narrative that had been installed that day by the actual perps, which are the blue shirts, who easily could have calculated their predictions against the results, but they never had predictions, and they never talked about the predicted result of being somewhere between 18 and 22 inches or something, Wendell, and they only came up with 3 or 4 inches, and then they claimed that was accentuatedly more.
My intuition, again, I don't know these people, I don't know their thoughts. My intuition is they didn't take you seriously. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry they didn't take you seriously. I'm sorry they didn't take your experiment seriously. But that aside, still, you have Tony, you have myself. We're giving you rational explanations as to why you are seeing too far. And I'm just wondering why you won't acknowledge or won't see that as a possibility.
Because you haven't looked into the refractive index, number one. Number two, yes, we have. We just supplied it to you. Fucking hell, are you crazy? We just supplied it to you. I pasted it. You saw that I pasted it. Stop it. Wendell's talked to me about it for years. He's thoroughly gone through it before we started.
Hold on a second, Dan. We may be talking to cross purposes. If you're telling me you posted a single index of refraction, then that's not what I want. And also, you posted it.
Again, you're commenting
No,
on something
So,
unreviewed.
I'm sorry.
Unreviewed.
I had to do
Right.
something.
You
I
had to
had to
take
do
a minute.
something.
Right.
Let me finish.
I mean,
off
the
on
idea of actually looking at it before you comment it might be worthwhile.
that.
Okay.
One second.
Just let's get real about that part of it. That's why I'm frustrated. Because you're talking about stuff
Hold on,
that you
Dan.
haven't.
I'm having an issue on my Discord. I really want to address this, but somebody is really fucking pissing me off.
Let's see. I'm not sure who it might be from this position. I can't tell.
It apparently is some dude named G.E. Bjunker or whatever it is.
Oh, Gerbluker? Yeah, Gerbluker. Yeah,
keeps
dump
using
him,
a
dump him.
soundboard, and I had to kick
Dump
him. I
him,
want to
yeah.
make sure that he is Turtle Beach. I want to make sure that he's gone.
Yeah, I heard that is him, and he bugs me all the time.
All right. So anyway, so you posted that on Discord, and thank you for that. And there was the paper for the Salton Sea. I haven't had time to look into that.
I know.
But,
So don't comment on it. So don't say that we didn't know about it. Don't make those assumptions. That's not cool. You're being fully uncool, just like Tony. Fully uncool. We've done the research before we got there. We've done the variations. We've done the options. We've done the repeats. We've done all this shit. And then I learned yesterday that refraction is based on the effects of time. That I mean, literally, I have to go through enough distance to have the speed of light be involved. Because there's no variations of the speed of light at these distances. So refraction's out based on the refractive index. The temperature inversion's out based on the location. And the diverging beam is out because it doesn't matter. Neither do the temperatures, neither do the barometric pressures, nor the gradients. Now, I understand your profession. I understand his. But that doesn't mean that you should discount what work we've done. And what it means is that something's wrong. Something is wrong. Now that's good science. When we discover a flaw,
I'm not discounting what you were saying. I don't know what you're bringing up with the speed of light. I don't know where you're getting that, but I can tell you, you're wrong. The speed of light has nothing to do with this, in the sense that refraction occurs because certain wavelengths of light, yes, will slow based on their certain wavelengths of light.
That's atmospheric. That's atmospheric refraction, which is different than lens refraction, and all kinds of things, and all kinds of dispersion, and all kinds of things we could talk about. Yeah, it
refraction is refraction. There is no difference between glass refraction and atmospheric refraction, and
except now you have two. Now you have two forces. So of course there's a difference.
So Dan, hold on. I apologize. I'm getting a little heated. You just told me, who has studied optics, who has studied refraction, that I'm wrong. That is where I am frustrated.
Okay, where refraction is pertinent in the distances you work at, it's impossible to have an effect on the light at the distances we work at.
You are making that claim, and we are saying, yes, we are not experts in atmospheric refraction, but we are experts in optics enough to tell you that that is not a factual statement.
Okay, well, you denied something which we provided reading for you. It's a very
you haven't
unique
given me the opportunity to read it.
I know. So I just said you can check it out.
Okay.
We're not, but you did say Now that's the problem.
I don't think that I said
Well, and you went to comment on it now without having read it. You're still pushing the argument without having any concept of how much effort and Wendell put into this every time we went out to make sure that we weren't looking silly for overlooking anything. He tried so hard, and when we found out, we went back again, and he went back again when he found out, he could have gotten the temperatures here too. We could have double checked the height. He went back, spent extra hours and days and days, just going back to make sure.
Okay.
And this guy didn't look. No, you guys don't want to look.
Sorry, got a little distracted. There was someone in my Discord who basically called me a motherfucker.
But isn't good enough. Isn't good enough. It's
I don't
not.
think that. I don't think that I'm doing that, Dan.
Okay, then we need math to support. Remember, he asked me to come up with math on what the prediction would have been over a globe. Fuck you. He should do that. It's his globe. It's his globe.
Hold on, Dan. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing Into the Break. Dan, if you could give me a moment.
Yeah, you can shit can any of those people. You've been patient. Shit can them. Anyone. Doesn't matter. I mean, Demon Stride's rebroadcasting. Someone's rebroadcasting. So leave him. Apocryphon's a gentleman. He's rebroadcasting. Brian's a gentleman.
Into the break. Please hold on a second. I had Dan in my ear. I can't concentrate on two people at once. I'm going to mute Dan so that I can address you. Sorry, no offense, Dan, but I want to be able to address Into the Break specifically. I don't know what this is about. So I blocked one person whom I believe on the YouTube channel. Hold on. You're blocked on my YouTube channel. Is that what you're telling me? Okay. So you're in YouTube chat. I don't know why. I have moderator. I did not. I did not block you, sir. What if one of my, I'm going to ask them, mods on my YouTube channel. Mods, if you could please, somebody please tell me if you blocked this guy's. All right. So what Meraki is telling me is that you were not blocked. You were timed out for non-stop trolling. What is your response to that? Okay. Okay. Real quick, and I'm trying to rectify this. Sig, I apologize. I think I was getting a lot of crap on my. Okay. Sig, I will get you back on. I will no longer server ban you. That was not my intention. I was just basically shooting blind. Into the break. Okay, let's address that. I was not paying attention to the chat because my focus is on my guests. That's whom I wanted to have a conversation with. It is up to my moderators, whom I trust, to time people out, to kick people who they think is not being appropriate, because they know me. My mods know what I will take. Okay. Okay. So Sig, Real Cygnus, I don't know how to fix the. I'm very, very sorry for having you as a server ban. I don't want that to be the case. I don't know how to fix it right now. So yeah. But I promise that I will fix it. So. All right. Okay. Now, where was I going with all that?
Let me ask you a quick question,
Yeah.
Dr. Parks. So I think it would be a valuable column to add to our data to calculate what the refractive index would be for each situation, which, from what I understand, is just a calculation of temperature and pressure, correct?
I think it's more involved in that, but that's definitely two of the.
Okay.
MC Toon actually is probably more knowledgeable about atmospheric refraction at this point than either myself or Tony.
And then as far as calculating the distance we should have been able to see, I mean, I agree. If we should have been able to see 50 miles and our observation was at 35, okay, but I'm going to need some help. I don't know at this point how to go about making those calculations.
And to be perfectly honest, neither do I. Because I am not an expert in it. But that's why we need to reach out. I mean, I can ask Toon if he can provide that sort of calculation. We have a lot of smart people in these communities. We have Walter Bisnelin, who is friggin' amazing with all of his calculators that he's done. Of anyone out there, I would imagine that Walter Bisnelin is the person who could tell me, if you want to know the observational range within a refractive atmosphere, this is the information you will need to give me to do it. So,
okay.
So yeah, I don't know if Walter I think I've seen him in my comment section, so I think he does watch. So hopefully he will watch at this point, and maybe we can set something up. So,
Awesome.
So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your patience, and it's difficult to when these ideas are mutually exclusive. We both can't be right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And I thank you for being here. Thank you for being polite. Okay,
and
I'm
I would
getting
like
a
to
sad trombone on my internet.
I would like to hear from your perspective, from an astronomy perspective, what data points prove a globe Earth from your 30 years of experience.
All right.
I mean, not right now. I mean, we'll have to have another conversation.
Yeah. Because I'm also, because of the shenanigans that are going on in my Discord, I'm slightly distracted. But yes, I can certainly do that for you.
Well, I look forward to partnering with you to build a better mousetrap, and Dr. Tony as well, and whoever else can lend their expertise, because it's one of the things I found out early on is like it's like you have to have a PhD in all these different fields to even bring some light into it. You don't know what you don't know. So, but I'm always willing to, there's a saying I like to say is that you can't, if you're really seeking the truth, then you have to be open to letting go of incorrect thoughts to grab a hold of correct ones.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear him, but there's someone called Into the Break is talking in my ear, and so I can't.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll let you go deal with that, and I'm going to go take care of my wife.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you for being on here. And I would love to have a chat with you. I would love to have a chat with you, going more in depth as to where you're coming from in terms of why you went into flat Earth. I know you described this somewhat, but
briefly, yeah.
Where you're coming from in terms of flat Earth, and go further. And again, I apologize for all this.
Oh, it's okay. Very nice to meet you, and I felt very welcome, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. All right. Hi, Dan. Okay.
Hi, Rob. So that's why I wanted to come on to talk to you about.
Hold on, Dan. I'm still dealing with Discord stuff. Into the break are
obstacles that we have that are
break. I am paying attention to my guests, so I apologize if I'm not studying the chat. I will look at the chat and see what they're doing. But I'm going to ask you a question. Are you using a soundboard? Simple question. Are you using a soundboard? Are you using a soundboard? Are you seriously asking me to? Are you seriously asking me to? Are you seriously asking me to make someone I have never met a mod? All right. Oh, blue is here. So into the break. I just heard. What the hell is his name? Dan, I know you can't hear any of this, so I do apologize for it. I just heard Baby Got Back. Into the break. Did you just play that? Into the break. Did you just play Baby Got Back? Who's the abusive mod? Who's the abusive mod? Who is the abusive mod on YouTube? Who is the abusive mod on YouTube? All right. I'm going to do this. There we go. All right. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know. Does anyone know who Drake is? Anybody? Drake? Because I'm about to kick Drake. Demon Strike, what'd you say? Demon Strike, you're breaking up on me. Oh, you're asking into the break? I've got him muted, so maybe I'm not hearing what he has to say. But right. Yo. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So how do I mute soundboard on my end? All right. Here we go with that. So hopefully that does it. All right. Okay. So Dan has probably been sitting here listening to a one-sided conversation, so I am going to address him. And yeah, I really didn't want to regret opening it up to a lot of folks at the last minute, but I'm starting to. But I will deal with that after the stream. I really.
Okay, well, I'm sorry because that just breezed through you through a board Discord at the last minute when I started talking about it, and of course they expected a shit show, and I'm sorry because I didn't mean to do that, but I was being disrespected bad by someone who's commenting on someone they won't look at. That's someone I like, someone I'd like to trust. That's science.
All right, now I'm also getting confused because Dan is talking to somebody. Yes, I can describe. I can talk about the azimuthal, or maybe I don't know.
Talking to somebody, I'm talking to you.
Oh, all right, okay. Dan, I'm sorry, I'm getting the Discord thing. Let me do this. Sorry, guys, I'm going to deafen Discord so that I can talk to Dan. All right. Okay, Dan, you have my full attention. I'm sorry. So
I can. There's no way I can repeat what I just said, but it had to do with being disrespected by someone who's willing to analyze something without ever looking at it. Someone who I'd like to trust, I like as a man, but who represents every bit of the science and scientism that I just experienced. This guy says, from my position with my hypothesis, I'm fucking done with you. No matter what the fuck you done, I'm not going to look because I'm making it up. You know, I hate to get excited again because I'm making up what I think you did when it's kind of available, you know, and it's not really fair. So on one hand, you know, you said, I don't think so. And it's like, well, he's quoting something, you know, he could be wrong, but he knows what he's quoting. We've read it. We've run into the difference between the abstract and the full piece that we can't get every time I give someone a link. I get yelled at for not giving them the entire thing and for cherry picking. So trust me, I know about that. So It's not fair to disregard to begin with. How's that? To disregard to begin with. And it's bizarre. It was not intentional on that man's part. He came in with a headache. He should not have done so.
I can't speak for Tony.
Well, I can't. I like him. I like him. I can't.
Yeah, so do I.
He didn't mean to disrespect us, but in fact, there's nothing more disrespectful. He commented out of his league on something he hadn't seen, and then wanted to interrupt by bringing up what he knew about. It's like, okay, that's a one-sided fucking scene. He's gotten in trouble for that before. That's how he gets in trouble. I mean, if he came pushing a narrative because he knows he has damn good proof. I watched his proof last night. He's got damn good proof. Okay. So I know what he's saying. It's just like you when I met you. You're like, tell me what the fuck I'm looking at. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I don't know what you're looking at. We may not know. But we know that there's tons of mixed information. In this case, there's bad math because there is no calculations for the speculation of curvature, and the impression upon light at these short distances involve a saturation of medium that would prevent us from seeing across the way. It'd be known as fog or rain or weather, you know, of sorts. So there's different refraction of different properties, the lensing itself, the light itself, the properties of it, the diffusion, the dispersion. None of that really matters if you're seeing it. The distances keep changing. So whatever. I could say all I want if nobody looks, right? So here's the example of what I wanted to talk to you about. It's not about belief. Then just so you know, the fury that I have is because Tony had said before, if you guys had just presented it properly, we might fucking get around to understanding it. He had the nerve to say that.
Okay.
Think about that. So, like I said, truly unintentional, truly biased, truly scientific, and truly a member of a scientism in the belief beforehand of, unfortunately, the code. He's saying, hey, the code said so. And we're saying, wow, experience says otherwise. And the guy says, I don't care. I don't need to look at that because I know what the book says. So I get it. I get it.
Well,
I don't hate him for it, but I hate it how it happens.
Okay.
And I hate how it comes out. How the disregard is the first thing we get. We're disregarded.
So I will give you my take on it. I didn't think that Tony was disregarding it. I didn't think he was.
He spoke of something outside of his field without looking at it.
What I was hearing Tony do was, particularly the one instance that I can remember, is Wendell had asked, "Can you define the angular, or basically the angular drop, or the angle of diffraction, or whatever?" And then Tony was saying something about laser beams or what have you, and then you came in and said, "No, that's not what we actually did." But what I was hearing Tony doing was just describing generally how that angle is measured, or what that angle is, separate from what you had done.
Please don't protect him. He said later he hadn't looked at anything we'd fucking done. So whatever.
No, I'm not saying that he had.
All right, so
he
don't protect him there. Let's just admit this is what happens sometimes, is a complete disregard across the board.
Dan, are you listening to what I'm saying? I don't think he was disregarding you. He is.
Oh, he told you afterwards he hadn't even looked. So what does his theories mean to me when I'm bringing demonstrative results? And he's going to tell me what the book said? You think Wendell didn't read the fucking books before we went out there? Do you think we didn't take the measurements? Do you think we didn't include refraction? Do you think we don't know our heights, our elevations, or the temperatures? Fuck. That shit's easy.
Easy. You're telling me that actually accounting for atmospheric refraction is easy?
Well, the way they do it is they throw in an average. And we allowed that and still exceeded that over and over and over again.
You have stated that. I've looked at your data. I don't see where you can make that claim.
It's an entire column that says metabunk adjusted refracted value.
Yeah, I've seen that. And it's a height in feet.
Exactly. That's how you would measure the Earth. That's how you'd measure. That's what, I mean, when you say height in feet, you're going to say that we're misrepresenting a peak versus the overall something, or in other words, whatever you say, trust me, it's not only accounted for. I understand the quadratic thing, for instance, at the 9 miles, it could be explained away because of our elevation off the water, but that doesn't explain when we go down to the water. It doesn't explain that.
So Dan, and I apologize, and this may seem like I'm moving the goalpost, but I have already stated what will make me sit up and watch. That metabunk value doesn't tell me anything.
It's absolutely what you asked for.
No, that is not what I asked for. What I asked for,
it isn't even there. Those properties aren't even there. We just allowed you to throw them in. That's not scientific.
What I'm asking for is, given the conditions of the day, what is the farthest you should be able to see given atmospheric refraction? Is it
The
50,
word
50
given
miles?
atmospheric refraction is a catchphrase that you think is explainable. And if it were, it would have to do with the conditions that you are going to ask us to write down. These would be pressures, they would be temperatures, they would be variations throughout time, through the day, same location, different applications of these temperatures and pressures, right?
Yeah.
We're ignoring wind. A lot of people do. It's easy to do so. It's not cool, but there we go. In fact, I don't think we're going through the variations of elevation that require gradient variations. We're in a unique place with a heated water source that often matches the air temperature. It's a very unique place.
I will. You've given me the paper. I will look into it. I will read it.
But that's why it's unique.
Right.
So we have minimum temperature. It's dry with minimum temperature inversion. And when it's cold, you don't get any extra temperature effect. So instead of asking how much refraction we might be able to see, which
That's
is
not what
your
I'm asking.
claim. Wait, which is your claim?
That is not
See,
what I'm asking for.
What's the question again, then?
So, according to our science, if you have these variables, if you have the temperature, if you can identify what the atmospheric conditions are, then you can calculate the atmospheric angle of dip, which will then give you what I am asking for. Is I want to see a number in miles saying this is the absolute cutoff that you can see.
Okay. Will you look at something with me real quick? I'll show you in a second. Gosh, this is so fun. I mean, like, if you have real questions, I trust you. I have real answers. I can. Okay. This is a brand new thing. Somebody gave it to me because they disagreed with it, even though they were a flat earther. It's a calculator. And if we punch it up and bring it up and put in the three numbers that we work at, for instance, 10, 18, and 27 miles, because that's the Salton Sea numbers, you'll see a number come up in that calculator. Let me open it up. Let me know if you want to share it. But fortunately, compared to Bisland's, what?
Please share.
Oh, great. Yeah. So fortunately, compared to Bisland's, which was super complicated, or maybe we're super naive and don't understand it.
Atmospheric refraction is complicated.
In this demonstration, it's not, because what's listed on this one, which isn't usually listed. Let's see. Am I back in Discord with you? Where am I?
I don't
know.
think you
I'm
are.
in StreamYard. Okay. So present. I am presenting, and it is a share screen, and it wants a second monitor, I think. 1 sec. I get lost position of what I was sharing. I can put it over here. Okay. And there it is. And share screen. And that doesn't help me much. Entire screen. Here we go. Okay. So I'm sure something may have come up for you. I'm not sure if it came up for anyone else.
It's now up. Earth. It's
Cool.
very pink.
So this is brand new. I haven't played with it. I haven't scrutinized it much, but I know that we worked at 9.77 miles. And generally, we might have had about 13 feet plus a tripod, or around 18 feet.
Okay.
So the funny thing about this is what you keep asking is, what would this expectation be? And it's portrayed here in a funny way, because the distance to the horizon's mentioned.
Yeah.
Yet we can see across the lake, so we're kind of contesting that the horizon hasn't happened yet. So we can see past that mark.
Okay.
And the obscured portion is listed here as 13.956, and the amount of refraction added here, I don't know. We'd have to go into that again. But I want you to know now that if we look across another section where we have documentation at 17.5, well, what happened is this number changed here. The obscured portion changed, which is the part of your saying we didn't get the calculation right and you don't believe. But look what didn't change. the distance to the horizon, because the horizon isn't part of these atmospheric thingies. It's part of the shape of the Earth. So when we go up to 27 miles and talk about the possibilities of some 300 feet before refraction calculations and things, but look what didn't change here. Do you see that? The actual
do you want to know why? Do you want to know why?
Yeah, because it's physical and not optical.
Because that isn't taking into account refraction.
I understand that. And when you do so, this number is still exceeding. Oh, gosh. Now you know why I bang my head. Okay, so I don't need to stress myself. I just want you to note that under all duress of all calculations that you'll give me, we have exceeded the expectation. Yet you're saying that we might have the expectation of a calculation when the suggestion now is your calculations of refraction. When you didn't understand what I said about refraction, is I understand that the refractive index with a unit point of 1, meaning air, goes at 1.0006 something the fucks, whatever it is. And as it gets thicker towards water and liquids, it starts to get towards 2, and some diamond is some crazy thing like 16 and very reflective or refractive.
Yeah. That's what makes it pretty.
The point is, how does that affect the bending of light? And when you say, well, what is that measuring? It's actually a time separation. Like if it's slowed down, that's what it is.
We are now moving very far away from the first point that we were trying to make with this.
Oh no, we're actually okay. Well, okay, whatever you say.
Yes.
Whatever you say.
So you had talked about a physical horizon. No one says that when we look at the horizon, that is the physical horizon. That is the visible, apparent horizon because of refraction. Because refraction, as Whitsitt has famously said,
right. But there. You see the number 5.2, how it doesn't change? Do you see how it doesn't change? If we go up to 50 miles, like you said, do you see how that 5.2 doesn't change?
Because it is not taking into account refraction. That is
no. This 5.2 is solid Earth, man. It's no weather, no bending of light.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to start over.
No, Dan.
10 miles. Let's get everyone on board here. 10 miles is a 66-foot drop. Do you know that? Sure. That's what it is. That's what the calculation.
Dan, you're not listening to me. And I'm becoming frustrated.
What's wrong?
That distance to the horizon doesn't take into account refraction, which is
Go ahead. Do so. Add that too, man. And we did. And you don't believe we did when we gave you the calculation. You're going nuts with me. You're saying stuff that isn't true. I'm going to go over this one more time so you understand that the horizon is based on your observational height and the distance that the Earth is still there.
The physical
and
horizon,
it's not there very long. A globe has to deviate.
The physical horizon, yes.
So it's
horizon.
Constantly depicted in this calculator, which is what I was saying. It's very interesting. So if we were doing 10 miles or 9.77 miles, you'll see the number you're looking to affect is this 48 feet. You're saying, hey, I don't think that's right. Guess what? That's not right, because the quadratic stuff before you get there means only 16 feet will be in the middle. Then you can start with refraction. But the point is that we're believing that we're doing it in low refractive environment where your claim of refraction must be substantiated. So we did it again in different weather conditions. And that is the best we could do to check. Now, your denial of this number down here, as it changes, as I go to 17.5, you see this 176 feet. That's not the claim. It's quadratic, and then you're allowed to add your refractive garbage. So the claim is much different. But when it comes to 27 miles and you end up with it being 166 feet between you and the other side missing.
I am going to ask this. I'm going to say this one more time, and I'm going to try to be tactful about it. I do not care. Absolutely, 100%. Do not care about the obscured height. I don't give a shit.
What do you mean obscured height?
You keep showing me the obscured height, the 317. Hold on, Dan. No. I am getting very frustrated. You keep showing me the obscured height of 317 feet. I don't give a fuck.
Good. Well, you were trying to affect it with your calculations.
What I care about is the distance that you can, the total distance
right
that you
there.
can see, which is not that. That is the distance to the physical horizon, not even the apparent horizon. And that's not even saying about how you can see over it. So until you can give me a distance, a refracted distance that you can see, then I'll pay attention.
So what's up with Bislins and what's up with our numbers? So what's up with Bislins and what's up with our numbers? I'm sorry, I'm confused now.
Okay.
Right? I mean, so I'm going to look at here and it says here, metabunk refracted hidden in feet.
Okay, hold on. Before you go any further,
what does that mean?
I want you to know this. I do not give a fuck about hidden bullshit. I don't give a fuck. Don't care. You can stop quoting me that number. I don't.
You asked for it.
No, that is not what I asked for. I asked for a range. I asked for how far can I see if I can see somebody 50 miles away. I don't give a shit.
Why do you add refraction to that question? In other words, I understand you have a question about a long distance observation, but you're asking me to measure the refraction in that observation? Because we only make these observations without refraction getting in the way. So when there's low refraction, we're able to see far. That's the premise. You're missing the entire premise.
No, actually, the premise is if you have large refraction, you see far only when there is large refraction. The whole black sheep.
Well, how am I seeing past 5.2 miles again?
Because of refraction.
And that refraction calculation holds true at different distances, different temperatures with different light sources, day and night over land, water, and ice? Your calculation holds up, but you want me to provide your calculation when I provided all the variables, showing that your calculations are worthless. That's why you representing the other side, aren't showing me that, because it's unaccounted for. It's not something you can create. And we've taken every opportunity and added it in. And they've now added the word gradient. And like I explained, they don't even know if it means gradient temperature, gradient waypoints, gradient heights. They're just throwing it out there like they did refraction. And the word refraction cost us 2 or 3 years to understand it till we tested it. We have tested it. I went back. I asked someone that said it's about slowing down light. It's about light changing speeds that causes refraction.
It is. But,
okay, well, that can't happen over these distances.
How do you know that?
Because light travels too fast to have an effect at that distance. Holy mackerel.
How do you know that?
Because your physics say so.
No, it doesn't. Okay. Now you're laughing at me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask the same question that Rachie is asking. Is you keep saying that it's low refraction. How do you know that it's low refraction if you're not measuring it?
Oh my God! Because we're not just including it because we want to. We're measuring it by being there in the times when we can't see. For instance, let's say you're there during the heat of the day and there's lots of refraction. And as it cools off, it gets clearer and clearer, and you can see further and further. Why? Because it's cooling off and there's less action. So there's less refraction.
That is not what physics.
Okay, it's real world. We've really done it for days on end. Okay,
You do not
you
know
can't
what you,
say
you
what
have
you're
not
saying,
calculated.
Rob.
You have not calculated what the actual refraction is. All I've seen you guys
it's not
calculate.
our responsibility to justify your claim. Your claim is refraction. I'm claiming line of sight. Get that straight. Stop this. Your claim is refraction. So you bust out the numbers and you decide what the fuck is supposed to be gradient. Come on. Get real. You're making a claim and you're expecting me to substantiate it with my numbers? We've made the observation again and again under different conditions. That is not a claim. That is a demonstration. Now you demonstrate it at least on paper before you get the fuck out there and show me, but you can't do it on paper and you're telling me it's my responsibility to prove your theory? You're getting as bad as Tony.
Okay. You have a point. Maybe we should supply the given your data.
We've allowed you it. We've thrown it in for you.
Hold on. I'm conceding something for you. You have given data, and we have not done what I have asked. We have not tried to use your data to figure out a range to an object. We have not done that. Whether it's our responsibility or not, that is not an argument that I want to have after the day that I've had. What I am going to reiterate is what Tony is going to reiterate. If you want to try to convince us of that what you're saying is true,
he didn't.
This
even
is
watch.
what.
He said that without ever looking at what we have shown him.
Okay, fuck Tony. Sorry, Tony. I am saying this is what I would like to see. I would like that to be. I would like that to be done. Now, if you don't want to provide that, then I'm asking you to provide that. If you don't want me to, if you don't want to provide that, then I don't see how you can expect me to change my opinion, because that is what I am asking for.
Okay, first of all, I keep telling you it's there. I don't know why you're in denial of that. Second of all, I offer the calculation of what they call standard refraction. So beyond any expectations that we have of none, we've added an average just for fun. Because you guys can't, because we didn't understand it and you said it, and your peeps settled on the word standard refraction. Settled on that. So we're using that. Okay, good. You're right. So your claim is the same as everyone. It must be bending because you can't be paralleling the surface. So you need to provide rhyme or reason. Now, when I explain the properties of light, which you know really fucking well, and you can correct me on this, the refraction can happen within the beam, within the width of the beam, because that's all it is, because a speed difference from here to here, because it got misaligned. It got misaligned, and there's a slower portion on one side than the other. So this misalignment causes a push and a bending. This happens with the rifling of a bullet. This happens with the This happens with the rifling of a bullet. Yes, it's whatever you want to call it.
You said I could correct you. You said that I could correct you if you were
whatever
wrong.
you want to call it, the force upon it. The
force
upon it, the effect upon it is due to the speed difference from one side to the other. It's a speed variance.
Yes. What you're talking about is the amount of refraction as a function of wavelength. So, and I think he froze. And honestly, at this point, Dan, if you can hear me, I am no longer able to have a rational or calm conversation at this point.
Okay, so we're describing what causes the bending of light. When I looked into it, which you said you didn't understand earlier, when I explained the refractive interest. So when I'm trying to explain it to you, your suggestion is light, even though it's fucking really fast, that this variation has happened within a few miles, enough to keep pushing it over and over again within the variance of the width of the beam.
Okay, so Dan, you were talking about
You're killing me. You can crack a smile now. You're killing me.
No, Dan.
You're serious.
I am very pissed, actually.
You're serious.
I'm trying to remember. Yes, I am very serious.
Okay, so
I'm trying to be civil.
Wait, how are you talking about stuff you said before you didn't understand? How?
Let me be absolutely crystal about what I understand and what I don't. I do not understand the factors that determine the gradient of the index of refraction through an atmosphere. That I don't understand. But I do understand is you are talking about two different things and conflating the two. The first one is monochromatic light. Monochromatic light will refract. A light that is a single wavelength comes through the atmosphere. When it moves from one index to another, it will refract.
What are you calling an atmosphere? Whoa. Are you calling your job an atmosphere or my job? Because big atmosphere and right here locally is a bit different thing. So which one are you talking about? Because we're eventually going to call it a medium, right? Just call it a medium so we don't get confused.
Medium. So according to the globe model, yes, I know I should go to sleep. According to the globe model, the way that the physics works is for a monochromatic beam, so that we're not confusing anything. For a monochromatic beam, it's going to go high because, as Tony showed you, if you're on a sphere, as you go straight, you're going to gain in altitude, and
because Tony speculated that. We've shown
this is according to the globe model. This is
but
what
we're
the
not
globe
doing
is
that
trying
when
to
we
say.
walk outside. We're dealing with real world now.
I am trying to explain to you how refraction works on a globe. Monochromatic light will go through that.
We studied all that. We studied all that. We did. We included all that. We included that. We studied that. We give you that. It's still not there. The numbers don't match up. How much refraction do you want? Show me how that happens. Show me what conditions will cause that. Those are your claims. Your numbers are necessary. It's going to take a meteorologist. Don't bother. It's not for you and I to do. I'm telling you, we've worked in enough conditions to show that those numbers can't be consistent. They need to be changed in each condition. Yet we get the same result. You got to understand that part of it. We're really seeing past 5.2 miles. That 5.2 miles is critical. All right, I'm sorry. We should go. It's late. I get it.
Yeah, because
we don't need to fight about it. We can take this up anytime, right? But 5.2 miles is your declaration by your globe. Forget this crap at 300 miles on my screen. 5.2 miles.
It is not. It is not our declaration.
It's physical. It's not optical. The horizon's physical. There's two horizons. We know there's two, right? We're not arguing over that. One's optical and one's physical. On a real world, there would be a physical horizon. We've measured to not find that prevalent. It's not there.
Dan, I value our friendship. And because I'm tired, and because I'm very frustrated, I don't feel that I can have a rational conversation with you. I feel that I am going to disrespect you. I feel that I'm going to disregard you. I don't want that to happen. I do not want that to happen.
I'm fine, because you feel you can comment on stuff you haven't seen, and you feel that light, the speed of light, is being affected within a few miles. That's what you think. That the bending is because the light has changed speeds. Because of what in the air? You don't know. You haven't tried.
Dan, what was I just saying?
That you're done. I'm sorry. Good night.
because again, if we continue along this route, I feel that I am in danger of disrespecting you. I'm in danger of harming our friendship. So I do not feel comfortable continuing this. You may think of that as a character flaw. You may want to say, I think someone has said that it's a soft rage quit.
It's late. No, we went hours. No, it's late. Sorry. No, I didn't say any of that shit.
So,
Didn't say any of that shit.
but yes. So
I feel that if I arranged my pens differently, I would have done better. Really. Pretty sure.
Sure, why not?
Different glasses, maybe. What do you think?
I don't know.
I never got the clipboard. If I got the clipboard out, I think you might have been in trouble.
Yeah, maybe.
Sure. It says stuff on it. The clipboard says stuff on it.
Yeah, and it's got to be true. It's like clipboard says it. It's got to be true. Flat Earth, hey.
Pages and pages of stuff. So words are interesting. Demonstrations are valuable. That's why you see me so ecstatic that we've actually got something to look at. So if you could look at something, or if he can, that'd be great. You and I can do this again if you want. And if you can tell me later about light and how the speed of light is involved with refraction, because that's different than weather and stuff, and lensing and all kinds of other refractions, which are actually the results of other conditions. Refraction is actually the result of other stuff. So yeah, we're not optical experts. If you can help me get near one, that would be great. And the one, like I said, when we did get near one who is willing to talk about it, he's not willing to be seen going out testing it with us, much less testimony.
Okay.
It'll affect his career. So I thank you for having so much guts. You're a good guy.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Dan. Cool. And I value your I value our conversations. But yeah, I think I need to get some sleep. So okay. I'm going to I'll have you sign off, and then I'm going to talk to my audience, give them a couple of updates and so forth, and then I'm going to shut the stream down, and I'm going to try to get some sleep. So,
all right, just thanks everyone, and if anyone does care to look at something, I think they should look into it without having too much of an opinion coming to begin with. It's pretty easy to laugh. These two men in particular have serious careers that involve their eyes on stuff, so I don't think they're being fooled whatsoever. I think flat earthers are more likely being fooled, but that doesn't mean that they should disregard our good science on these things and our observations and the math behind it. That's all.
Yeah. All right, Dan. It's been an interesting night. Again, I appreciate the conversation, but I'm gonna bid you for it because I also have to deal with the potential dumpster fire that my Discord has become.
All right. Well, I owe you one. I owe you one. I thought I didn't mean for that, but we can blame Riggs, because Riggs says, "What are you doing?" I go, "This is what I'm doing." He goes, "Should I tell everyone?" I go, "Yeah, go tell everyone."
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'll deal with this, and I'll probably shut down all permissions on my server until I wake up and are clear-headed and it can actually deal with it on a more rational basis. But so yeah. All right, man.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Good night.
Good night. Let me make myself big. Big. Yay. Big Professor Parks PhD. Big P squared. P cubed. All right, I'm going to unmute myself or deafen myself on my Discord. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with my Discord. I should have been more, more discerning. I don't know. I'm tired. I have been up for 18 hours at this point, I think, or more. 14-hour workday. So, Tony, it was a pleasure having you on. Apologize the way things went. And yeah, I definitely would like to have you on again. I still have that kind of hidden desire to have the 4 PhDs of the apocalypse, have a show and or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm tired. I'm having a hard time making words good is difficult. So yeah. At this point, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the support. Bob, I am. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that question. Thank you for the support. I see Brian Leakey is in my Discord now, which I'm actually kind of excited about. I'm pretty happy about because he and I have been talking kind of back and forth, and I really would like to speak to Brian about a few things that he's done, so a few of his demonstrations. Yeah. Yeah, brain not function good. Yes. So yes, thank you all for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I hope at least I got some subs out of this because I'm 5 away from 500. When I hit 500, when I have a free time, what I want to do is I want to basically have a lot of folks on and just have a good time shooting the shit, talk about flat Earth or not. It doesn't matter. Just be able to, basically celebrate that I finally got to 500. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you like this sort of content, Professor Parks, PhD, puts out content on astronomy, science, skepticism, and mental health. If you like that sort of content, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to support me financially, please consider becoming a patron of mine. Thank you to both Dora Naku, and whom I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Dora and Judy Bassett, who are patrons at the moment. They have been rock solid in their support of the channel, and I very much appreciate that. I filmed a lecture, as it were, about worldviews, the anthropic principle, the Copernican principle, the cosmological principle. At the very end, I mentioned that one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to rework my Patreon system. But one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to add a layer, or a level rather, like $10 a month or so, where if you invest in that, I will carve out at least 6 hours a week. I know that doesn't sound like much, but to me, that's quite a bit. 6 hours a week to talk to you about performing an experiment that I think myself and others would actually take up and take notice if it were to show that the Earth was flat. So if you're interested in having me help you design and implement a test for flat Earth, I'm going to make it, there. Hey, 500 subs. Woo! Thank you. Mwah. Mwah. You are beautiful people. You are absolutely beautiful people. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, I am going to. I'm gonna sign off here. I'm gonna spend a few minutes on Discord. I'm gonna chat with Carnivore, and I am going to see what I can do about not making my Discord a complete dumpster fire. So yes, you guys are beyond amazing. As always, peace out. Clear skies.